Dark clouds gathered as strong winds blew over the shore, where a wave had washed a boy of around 13 or 14 years onto the sand. "Who is this child?" someone murmured. "Yeah, whose kid could he be?" another voice joined. The villagers looked on in curiosity and concern, whispering among themselves. Suddenly, the boy lying on the beach opened his eyes slowly, gazing blankly at the unfamiliar faces surrounding him. "Who are you?" he asked, bewildered. A slender woman stepped forward, examined his injuries closely, and sighed in relief upon seeing he was unharmed. "My name is Belmir, and I'm from Kokoja village. Can you tell me your name, young man?" she asked gently, extending a hand to help him up. "My name is Shun Yuan," the boy replied, looking confused. "Wait, let me check my phone." Shun Yuan, his soul newly inhabiting this body, was bombarded with fragments of memories filling his mind. Stunned, he searched his consciousness for any recollection of his previous self. After a moment, he found an unsettling truth. He was an orphan. Processing this, Shun Yuan firmly declared, "I am an orphan." A silence fell over the crowd. Shun Yuan looked away, closing his eyes to come to terms with this revelation. The villagers, too, began to understand his plight. "Where did you come from?" one villager asked. Before Shun Yuan could respond, a rustling sound came from behind him. He frowned, sensing something amiss. "No, something's wrong. Why do I feel like someone's watching me?" Just then, a monstrous roar echoed from the sea. A massive creature with blood-red jaws and sharp white fangs surged toward Shun Yuan, ready to devour him. The beast was enormous, its mouth large enough to swallow 10 Shun Yuans whole. As the villagers stood frozen, someone shouted, "Run! Why are you just standing there?" 2 onlookers shivered, feeling their skin prickle in terror. The creature roared again, trying to intimidate the humans before it. At that moment, a surge of courage ignited within Shun Yuan. "Get out of here!" he shouted, pushing Belmir aside. Raising his fist, he braced himself to face the massive beast. After all, he thought, he had nothing to lose. As an orphan, if he perished, it would be his fate. But the next instant, the creature's fanged mouth lunged toward him. Ouch! With one swift gulp, it swallowed him. Belmir stumbled backward in shock as she watched Shun Yuan vanish. Before she could process it, the creature's teeth were inching toward her as well. Panic-stricken, she threw a punch in desperation. Just as things seemed hopeless, a hero made his entrance. Bang! A powerful blow struck the beast from behind, freezing it in place. Its enormous body went rigid, then collapsed, disgorging Shun Yuan onto the sand. Shun Yuan blinked, still dazed, trying to comprehend what had just happened. A white-haired elder in a marine cloak walked toward him, taking deliberate steps, one after another. At the same time, an ethereal voice echoed in Shun Yuan's mind. "Detected. Host has faced a life-or-death crisis. Activating the skill tree system, binding it to host's identity." "Skill tree?" Shun Yuan murmured, momentarily forgetting the old man. Instead, he turned his attention to the newly revealed system. The elder, noticing Shun Yuan's bravery, nodded approvingly. "Young man, you showed courage. What's your name?" he asked. "Shun Yuan," he replied absent-mindedly. The elder, who introduced himself as Garp, turned his attention to Belmir as she saluted him, explaining her past as a retired Marine. Seemingly unbothered by her past, Garp turned back to Shun Yuan, who was still marveling at the skill tree interface. The skill tree had 3 functions: location detection, personal stats, and skill upgrading. By defeating opponents or completing tasks, Shun Yuan could earn skill points and level up, unlocking new abilities. "Where are you from, boy?" Garp asked. "Windmill Village," Shun Yuan replied automatically, though his mind was still engrossed in the skill tree options before him. Garp perked up at the mention of Windmill Village. "Then you know my grandson, Luffy?" Shun Yuan answered, "I've heard of him, but we haven't met." "Good lad. How about joining the Marines with me?" Garp asked, clearly intrigued. After some thought, Shun Yuan considered that joining the Marines could be a safe path. Under Garp's protection, He'd be shielded from danger until he could join Luffy on the high seas. But then he reconsidered. The skill tree was meant for growth, not safety. Before Shen Yuan could finish his thoughts, Garp grinned and said, "From today on, you're my grandson." Shen Yuan's eyes widened. Why did this man insist on making him family? "Grandpa Garp," he replied reluctantly, "I'd like to be independent for now." Garp's expression turned stern. "You're not planning to become a pirate, are you?" "No, I don't intend to be a pirate," Shen Yuan assured him, feeling slightly exasperated. Satisfied, Garp decided to leave Shen Yuan in Belmir's care, giving her a pouch of money for expenses. As Garp and his companion departed, Shen Yuan stood there, dazed. Had he just survived a crisis and gained an unexpected grandfather? Belmir, meanwhile, patted him on the shoulder and smiled warmly. "Come on, let's head home. We'll have a good meal." A young girl named Nami greeted him excitedly. "Hi, I'm Nami. We'll be living together now." A shy no Kigo peeked out from behind Belmir. "Hello, Nami. I'm Shen Yuan," he replied with a smile. "Nice to meet you both." Belmir was pleased with her new family member. Judging by his actions, he had a kind heart. Plus, Garp's money was a welcome bonus. With that, they headed to Belmir's home, ready to welcome Shen Yuan as part of their family. Kokoja village also became more lively due to the arrival of Garp. The whole village was discussing the conversation between Garp and Shen Yuan just now. It's not just the villagers of Kokoja village who are lively, and the Belmir family. At this moment, Shen Yuan was carrying a stone in the courtyard and constantly exercising his body. "Brother Shen Yuan, aren't you tired?" Nami asked innocently. "Tired? How can I not be tired?" "Then you are still training so hard? Why?" Shen Yuan was about to say it was for skills, but as soon as his mind twitched, he casually mentioned a reason. "How can I protect you if you don't get stronger?" This sentence made him tremble all over. For a child who has had no father's love since childhood, the lethality of this sentence is very huge. "Oh, is that so?" Shen Yuan didn't notice anything strange about Nami, as his attributes were slowly increasing in his mind. Physique plus 0.01. Physique plus 0.01. Physique plus 0.01. Due to physical fitness training, the experience value gained is plus 0.1. Children, it's time to eat. Belmir brought a plate of orange pie to the table. There is also a roasted and oily roast chicken on the table, exuding an alluring aroma. After finishing the exercise, Shen Yuan did not rush to eat, but took a shower first. And take this opportunity to check out your system. Name: Shen Yuan. Age: 12 years old. Identity: villager of Kokoja village. Physique: 0.3/100. Agility: 0 out of 100. Speed: 0 out of 100. Power: 0.28/100. Will I have meat to eat on the first day I come here? Shen Yuan wiped his wet hair, looked at the delicious food on the table, and started teasing. "Isn't this thanks to you?" Belmir said with a smile. "Brother Shen Yuan, you are so handsome." Shen Yuan washed off the dirt on his body, and his exquisite facial features even made Belmir a little moved. Belmir shook his head to get rid of these evil thoughts, and then called Shen Yuan to come forward to eat. Nami happily ate the orange pie in her hand, staring at her brother who suddenly appeared in front of her from time to time. Especially what Shen Yuan said just now deeply touched Nami's heart. "Brother Shen Yuan, you are from Windmill Village, so you have drifted all the way here. You must have seen the outside world, right?" There is an amazing light in Nami's eyes. Nuo Chigao also raised her head, revealing a look of intense longing. "Well?" Shen Yuan racked his brains and began to talk to a few people using the vast world he had seen in his previous life. When Nami talked about the highlights, she grabbed Shen Yuan's arm and had little stars in her eyes. "Well, that's about it. Eat quickly. After that, Nami-chan, you can exercise with me." Okay. Nami cheered happily and finished the orange pie in his hand in 2 or 3 bites. Shen Yuan was not to be outdone. He ate at least half of the roast chicken in front of him. Most of the orange pie was gone. Afterwards, Shen Yuan took Nami out of the house in a hurry. After hearing the story told by Shen Yuan, Bellmeyer still had something to say. Although I joined the army, I can see that I am not as knowledgeable as Shen Yuan Guangda in front of me. What about the Three Gorges Dam? What about the towering Buddhas? What kind of landscapes are unparalleled in the world? Bellmeyer smiled. This young man was extremely steady and kind, and he became more and more looking forward to this young man's achievements. Time passed like this day by day. At first, Nami and Shen Yuan were exercising outdoors, and gradually no Kigo also participated. At this point, the three little guys were completely integrated. After a while, Shen Yuan was successfully upgraded. Without hesitation, he clicked on a low-level skill, Physique Enhancement, LV1, and the effect was to enhance one's own physique by 25%. Feeling the power he possessed, Shen Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. Now it's barely enough to deal with some low-level pirates. Run. The pirates are coming. The pirates are coming. I don't know who shouted at the entrance of the village, which made some villagers who were working look stunned. Then he spread his legs and ran away suddenly. You untouchables, hand over all your valuables to Laozi, or I will kill you. A group of pirates looked fierce and laughed slightly at the fleeing villagers. After hearing this, Shen Yuan hurried to the entrance of the village. He looked at the pirate in front of him, and then at the pirate ship in the distance. A pirate flag fluttered in the wind. The pattern on it was two long knives crossed with a strange horn in the middle. I am the second in command of the double sword pirates. If you are wise, hand over all the valuable things to Laozi. Shen Yuan stopped talking nonsense, took 2 steps quickly, grabbed a pirate who was raising a sword with one hand, and punched the pirate in the face. The pirate fell to the ground, covering his face and wailing in pain. Shen Yuan picked up the short sword on the ground and hesitated whether to kill the pirate in front of him. This is a gap that must be crossed. This world is the best embodiment of the law of the forest. If you don't eat the small fish, many big fish will eat you without hesitation. After hesitating for a few seconds, suddenly, a pirate showed a ferocious look on his face and raised his sword to kill Shen Yuan. Bang! There was a gunshot and the pirate fell to the ground. Bellmeyer breathed a sigh of relief, and the muzzle of the gun in his hand was still steaming. Don't be brave, little brat. Shen Yuan reacted immediately. The short sword in his hand stabbed the pirate's artery hard. Congratulations to host for killing an ordinary pirate. The experience value is increased by 20. The pirate's blood splashed all over Shen Yuan's face. He was not sluggish. He raised his sword again to resist the attack of another pirate, raised his right foot, and kicked him 3 times. Bang! Before the pirate could scream, the short sword had already been inserted into his chest. The pirates who died one after another watched a child rampage on the battlefield. I was dumbfounded for a moment. After the reaction, I was extremely angry. In an instant, the pirates all rushed towards Shen Yuan. Kid, just stand there and don't move. Laozi will destroy one of your arms. Shen Yuan's face turned dark. I still felt a little uncomfortable after killing someone, but at this moment, he was instantly broken by this heaven-defying speech. What the hell? How can you become a pirate if you don't have any brains? The group will be destroyed as soon as they set sail. Shen Yuan methodically dodged one attack after another. He dodged to avoid the fatal blow, but his body still couldn't avoid being scratched by the sharp weapon. He raised his short sword and stabbed one of the pirates in the waist. The pirate screamed and fell to the ground. Bellmeyer also assisted Shen Yuan in the rear to kill the enemy. She knew everything about Shen Yuan's skills. Puff! Another pirate fell to the ground. The other pirates did not dare to step forward for a while, looking at Shen Yuan, who was covered in blood with shock in their eyes. What's wrong? You guys? Did you meet Marine? I saw the man wearing a high hat and a red windbreaker, holding 2 machetes. The look he is looking at Shen Yuan at this moment is extremely dangerous. From time to time, he stuck out his long tongue, which was extremely fierce and fierce. Brother, this kid killed many of our brothers. The man with the long tongue frowned. Just call him after he's dead. I'm going to let this kid die here today. Shen Yuan killed a pirate again and threw it aside. What a piece of garbage. The low-quality short sword in my hand has already been cut into a curling blade, and it is almost turning into a saw. He picked up a short sword again and intertwined with the long-tongued man's eyes. A big war is about to happen. Eat me with a knife. The man with the long tongue struck out angrily, and the long blade struck out quickly, even making a sound of air explosion. Belmir also picked up a long knife and rushed to Shun Yuan to block his attack in an instant. Wait a minute. The long-tongued man was stunned, and his body that was originally moving at high speed suddenly stayed in place. I'll level up. The man with the long tongue was stupid. Experience is full. Level increased to level 3. Obtain bonus skill point *1. After allocating the skill points, he once again looked at the attribute panel expectantly. Physique enhancement level 2. Enhance your physique by 30%. Shen Yuan was dumbfounded. Both of them were dumbfounded. Long tongue. How can the life and death battle be stopped? Do you think you can practice Taekwondo here? Shen Yuan. Is this level 2 physical bonus so shabby? A little skill adds up to 5%? If I had known earlier, I would have added it to other skills. But now, Shun Yuan had no choice but to accept his fate. Bring it on. Shun Yuan took a step forward, and the short sword was as sharp as the ghostly lion majesty, and it quickly stabbed towards the throat with its long tongue. Long tongue also reacted very quickly. Although the long-handled weapon was a bit cumbersome, it still effectively resisted. One attack failed. Shen Yuan dodged around and changed positions again, aiming a punch at Long Tongue's chin. A standard uppercut executed perfectly. With stars in his eyes, Long Tongue hurriedly waved his weapon, but the cumbersome long knife posed no threat to Shen Yuan at all. Short sword struck again, and the blade slashed along Long Tongue's chest, leaving a long scar. The wound immediately bled, staining Long Tongue's relatively gorgeous clothes red. Shen Yuan did not hold back. Taking advantage of Chang Tu's daze, he swung the knife towards Chang Tung's neck again. Long Tongue covered his injured neck and looked at the boy in front of him in disbelief. The two long knives fell to the ground with a clang. Before he could react, he was hit in the abdomen with a short sword again. The short sword entered his abdomen, and under the influence of pain and blood, his consciousness gradually became blurred. Plop! Long Tongue fell to the ground without leaving a last word. The rest of the pirates were dumbfounded, and no one acted rashly. Kill the captain of the East China Sea Pirates. Level increased to level 5. Congratulations to host for reaching level 5. The right to use some skills has been released. Shen Yuan upgraded 2 levels in a row, and after checking, he learned the Marine 6 styles, Lanjiao, and Shaving, respectively. Pull out the short sword inserted in the belly of the Long Tongue and bring up a handful of blood. Looking at the pirate's eyes was like looking at a bunch of leeks. After a bloody storm, many pirates fell under Shun Yuan's butcher's knife. Throwing away short sword, Garp was late and ran over in a hurry. Looking at the many pirates lying on the ground in extremely miserable death conditions, and then looking at Shen Yuan who was standing on the ground covered in blood, he couldn't help but take a breath. Are you okay, Dason? Shen Yuan nodded as if nothing had happened. After a baptism, Shen Yuan had lost his childishness and had completely changed. Clean up the scene. Garp casually ordered. Grandpa Garp, give me these swords. I will study the forging when I have time. Garp was stunned. Are you interested in knife skills? Shen Yuan nodded and said nothing. Garp glanced at Shen Yuan, and without saying anything, he directed the sailors to deliver the weapons to the backyard of Belmir's house. Shen Yuan, how did you do it? Garp stepped forward and carefully checked Shen Yuan's body, and found that there was nothing serious, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Shen Yuan didn't know what to say, so he just found an excuse and excused himself. Okay, your courage is very commendable. How about I personally teach you how to practice during this period? Shen Yuan was stunned. If he could learn armament hockey in advance, he could save a skill point. Okay. Shen Yuan's eyes burst out with golden light, looking at Garp like a leak. Garp instantly got goosebumps all over his body, feeling like he was being stared at as prey. At home in Belmir, a group of people sat around a table. At this moment, Belmir, who was originally careless, became as obedient as a kitten. Jin stood aside seriously, looking at Garp, who was eating orange pie in front of him. Garp said loudly, "Little Gue too. It seems that your practice during this period has not fallen behind." Shen Yuan smiled and nodded, just about to speak, but he was interrupted by Nami on the side. "Of course, I can see Brother Shen Yuan's training day and night." Garp looked at the 3 children in front of him with a smile. In a daze, he thought of his 3 children again. "Come back to Windmill Village with me during this time. How about it, kid?" Garp smiled and touched Shen Yuan's head, his eyes showing gentleness. Aegean was hesitant to speak, but Belmir spoke first. "Lieutenant General Garp, can you let Mr. Shen Yuan stay with us for a while longer?" The former fell into deep thought and seemed to be thinking about this issue. "Grandpa Garp, is there a place for me in Windmill Village?" The former nodded. Finding a place to live is indeed not difficult. "That's no problem. Just let our whole family go to Windmill Village and settle down." Garp's eyes lit up. "Yes, why don't you all just go? Just treat it as a trip." Garp patted his chest and assured, "Of course." Belmir was a little hesitant when he heard this, but his heart softened when he saw the expectant eyes of Nami and Noki. "Just agreed." A group of people boarded the warship. The most miserable ones are those marine soldiers. The weapons originally captured close at hand were moved to the corner of the village, and the weapons were moved to the warship. The faces of all the sailors were not pretty. Also moved away was the barbell used by Shen Yuan for training, which was a gift given to him by Nami and Nokigo, who saved money together. The Marines' faces turned dark, 2 or 3 people lifting a barbell. Walking towards the warship step by step, I was very angry when I saw Shen Yuan's arrogant expression on the way. Shen Yuan said with an air of dignity, "I'm telling you, give Lousy a good move." All the Marines had dark faces. Shen Yuan stood on the deck, looking at the endless sea. There was already a storm in his heart. Nami sat on Shen Yuan's neck, imitating Shen Yuan and looking at the sea. Garp was sitting on a lounge chair, chewing sunbae in his mouth. Only Noziko and Melber stood behind Garp uneasily. "It's like Grandma Lu entering the Grandview Garden." Shen Yuan fiddled with the system again and checked out the new functions recently launched by the system. Destiny selection function. Select the camp you want to join, and tasks will be released accordingly to obtain rewards. Choice 1, Marine. Choice 2, Pirates. Choice 3, Adventurer. Shen Yuan did not hesitate and immediately chose the identity of Adventurer. Successful selection. Task during the launch phase. Own a ship of your own. This mission? On purpose? There was a ship right in front of me just now, but I didn't cherish it. If God gave me another chance, I must. Shen Yuan's face darkened. Garp looked at Shen Yuan, whose face turned red and white in confusion, and was also confused. What the hell? I didn't say the second half of the sentence, maybe because I was afraid of embarrassment. East China Sea, Windmill Village, the hilltop of Dayton's family. At this moment, Dayton was sitting helplessly next to Ace and Luffy. No matter how noisy the 2 children are, there is nothing they can do. Dayton. When Dayton heard this call, he was immediately frightened. Dayton. Damn it. Here we go again. He stood up hastily. He looked at Garp, who was slowly walking in the distance, and showed a flattering smile. "Mr. Garp, you?" Before he finished speaking, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a kid following Garp. "Dayton. Look, look, look. Here comes another one. Does this old man treat my place as a kindergarten?" Garp laughed heartily and said slowly, "I'll let them meet. He will live here for a long time from now on." Dayton responded listlessly. There are not many emotional changes. Garp didn't care and turned around to look at the 2 little ones. "Luffy, Ace, this is Shen Yuan. Is your new accomplice, partner?" At this time, Ace was thin, wearing a half-sleeved shirt with the word power printed on it. Ace smiled. He showed a meaningful smile towards Shen Yuan. Luffy at this moment looks very similar to adult Luffy. Dumb-headed and not very smart. Luffy stared blankly at Shen Yuan in front of him, saying nothing. "Then you guys get along for a while, and I'll go back and help Shen Yuan tidy up the house." "Say it." Garp turned and left without saying another word. Garp just left. The unruly ace has made some changes. He took a step forward. I want to challenge you. Shen Yuan smiled. He clenched his fists. He waved his hand. The war between the two is about to break out. Dayton did not stop it. It's nothing more than children's play. Whoosh! Shen Yuan took the lead and moved in front of Ace at high speed with Sha. Punch out. Bang! This punch immediately hit his abdomen. Ace felt the huge power. He couldn't help spitting out a mouthful of acidic water and hit a big tree. Boom! The big tree was broken by Ace. He spit out a mouthful of blood and kept trying to stand up. What? Do you want to fight again? Shen Yuan stood with his hands folded, looking very cold. The former staggered up. He can no longer hold the water pipe in his hand. Bang! Repeat the old tricks. It moved in front of Ace at high speed again. Another sudden kick. Ace reacted instantly and raised the water pipe to block, but he couldn't resist the power of this explosion. He was kicked away by Shen Yuan again. He fell into the bushes. Defeat the plot character Ace Young. Level up to LV6. Shen Yuan curled his lips. If Ace is killed, that old man Garp will have to cut himself alive? Ace couldn't get up this time. The pain continued to erode the body, and the kick just now felt like being hit by a shotgun. Just then, a childish fist strikes. You are not allowed to bully Ace. Shen Yuan looked at Luffy and smiled lightly. I was just here to beat him. Now I'm going to beat you. This blow was easily caught by Shen Yuan. He simply kicked Luffy away. It instantly flew backwards 2 to 3 meters. Defeat the plot character Luffy, Young. Level up to LV8. Shen Yuan was excited after being promoted to 3 levels in a row. Along with the remaining skill points, he immediately learned the other Marine 6 iron blocks, moonwalk, finger gun, and paper painting. Another point is focused on the swordsmanship grandmaster. Completely mastered the 6 marine forms. Feeling how to use each move appeared in my mind. I couldn't help but be amazed. Dayton was dumbfounded when he saw what was happening in front of him. This brat's kung fu is probably not even strong enough for 2 moves. But if I don't go up, I'll get beaten if Garp finds out. In a sudden change of mind, he has already made up his mind. Holding a stick in hand, he ran directly towards Shen Yuan to attack. Why do you have to do it yourself? Shen Yuan's paper painting dodged to avoid Dayton's attack. Raise your hands sideways. Use a finger gun. The huge force penetrates Dayton's chest. Dayton was so surprised that the cigarette in his mouth fell to the ground. Feeling the pain spreading all over my body, I couldn't help but kneel down. Defeat the plot character Dayton and raise the level to LV9. Upgraded again. This time Shen Yuan focused on agility. Shen Yuan looked coldly at the 3 people who fell on the ground in front of him, and looked at the other bandits with an unkind look. What? Do you still want to fight? The other bandits were stunned. They want revenge, but they don't dare to step forward. Everyone looks extremely nervous. Shen Yuan sighed, and his attitude made a 180-degree turn. Pull up Dayton, who fell on the ground. He turned around and pulled Ace Luffy up again. Started to explain to everyone. The old man told me about you. He said you were naughty and asked me to discipline you. The blood at the corner of Ace's mouth has never dried up. Although the look in Shen Yuan's eyes was a little angry, it was more helpless. Luffy was not seriously injured. He carelessly hugged Shen Yuan's thigh and began to request, Brother Shen Yuan, can you teach me that ability to move quickly? It's so handsome. Dayton relaxed a lot and looked blankly at the scene happening in front of him. Only then did I realize that it was Garp's handiwork. Okay, but training is very hard. Shen Yuan does know the training methods of Marine 6 styles. After learning the 6 forms of Marine, the practice method seems to be imprinted in Shen Yuan's mind. Okay, I'm not afraid of hardship. At this time, Ace also spoke. Shen Yuan, if you defeat me, then I will recognize you as my eldest brother. I also want to practice with you, and I also want to learn your fast-moving skills. Naturally, Shen Yuan would not refuse. Ace, be lucky. Also unfortunate. If possible, Shen Yuan hopes Ace can live well. After all, this is the wish of all living beings. Garp walked slowly up the hill and looked at Ace and Dayton with pale faces in front of them and was dumbfounded. Dayton told Garp everything that happened just now. Garp was stunned for more than 10 seconds. Only then did he react. He started laughing heartily. "Kid, have you mastered the 6th form of Marine?" Garp was a little suspicious. Although I had told Shin Yuan about the training methods of the 6 Marine forms, I never expected that he could master them so quickly. Shin Yuan nodded indifferently. "Okay, you are really Grandpa's great-grandson. It seems that you are already qualified to learn domineering. In the next month, I will teach you how to learn domineering. Don't be lazy." Shin Yuan's originally cold eyes became fiery. His eyes shone slightly. Looking at Garp right now is like looking at a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Garp got goosebumps from being stared at, so he took out a bag of senbei and ate it without any scruples. "Kid, show me the Marine 6th form." Shin Yuan walked to a tree, took a step, stretched out his finger, and pointed the gun at the tree. "Point the gun." The power of the fingertips instantly penetrated the big tree, leaving a big hole in the tree. It wasn't over yet. Shin Yuan was flying in the air on Moonwalk and threw out his flying kick. The violent shock wave split open the big tree, and the big tree was cut in half. Then Shin Yuan used shaving to flash back to Garp. The more Garp looks at it, the more satisfied he becomes. It's the perfect offspring of General Marine. "You three, meet in the forest nearby tomorrow. I will personally teach you physical skills." After saying that, Garp picked his nose and walked down the mountain, followed closely by Shin Yuan. "Brother, where are you going?" Luffy asked doubtfully. "Go home. Is it okay not to turn back? If you don't return your favor, why don't you support me?" "Luffy, I can't afford it." The next morning, the first ray of sunlight shines into the house. Shin Yuan slowly opened his eyes. What a sunny day. The corners of his mouth curved slightly. Looking at Nami sleeping soundly in her arms, she gently covered her with a quilt. He walked out of the room quietly, tidied up his appearance a little, then walked out of the house and started exercising. As soon as Bellmeyer walked out of the room and headed to the Orange Grove, he saw Shin Yuan exercising on the way. "Little Shin Yuan, are you exercising again?" He walked to Shin Yuan with a smile and handed a lunchbox from his backpack to his hand. "That's so kind of you, sister. Don't work too hard. Don't work too hard." Bellemeyer's heart warmed up and he jumped away. Shin Yuan finished his daily practice tasks and was overjoyed when he saw the system's increased attributes. After putting on his clothes, he slowly walked up the hill. At the same time, Dayton family. Luffy has already woken up. At this moment, I am standing on the top of the mountain, constantly looking down the mountain, hoping to see a familiar figure. Shin Yuan climbed up to the top of the mountain step by step and gradually appeared in Luffy's eyes. "Brother Shin Yuan, are you up so early?" After seeing Luffy, the former greeted him warmly. "Hi, didn't I miss you and come to see you?" He seemed completely different from the frosty Shin Yuan yesterday. "Follow me." Luffy heard this. He instantly became enthusiastic and followed Shin Yuan into the forest. First of all, to train yourself, you must first train your concentration. After saying this, Shin Yuan began to instruct Luffy on how to walk. Zamabu is a basic skill. This is also the method Shin Yuan often trains with. Luffy staggered in pain. Also training with him is Shin Yuan, who is riding a horse. Just train like this all morning. When the trees in the distance made a slight noise, Shin Yuan woke up suddenly. He looked at the bushes with a wary expression. The trees are shaking. Garp's head is revealed. Shin Yuan was stunned, and a speechless expression appeared on his face. "Brother Shin Yuan, your craftsmanship is really good." Luffy ate the barbecue heartlessly. Shin Yuan stared at Garp speechlessly. The venison in his hand no longer smelled good. When Garp saw this scene, he was about to say something. Suddenly, he felt tears of disappointment flowing from the corner of Ace's mouth next to him. After a while, the two also joined the barbecue army. Everyone is like a refugee fleeing famine, as if they have never seen food. A moment after having a meal, several people stood in front of Garp, who stared at the people in front of him seriously. Now let's start today's practice. The first lesson of this practice is to survive in this dangerous jungle for one day. Also, Shun Yuan, come with me. After saying that, the whole place was silent. Ace showed a doubtful look, and even Luffy, who was not very smart, frowned in a rare way. Go quickly. Garp punched each of the two little guys, and the two little guys flew out instantly. He breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Shun Yuan with eyes that gradually became intriguing. Come with me. A few minutes later, Shun Yuan followed Garp onto the warship. Garp gave him some thoughtful science tips while walking. Armed Haki is an attack method that strengthens the body's hardness and strength, and can use this energy to attack those with Logia Devil Fruit abilities. Shin Yuan listened quietly and did not speak. Everyone has a different way of practicing domineering. The way I practice domineering is to use domineering frequently to enhance my own strength, attack enemies or objects, and increase my own strength. Shin Yuan knows Garp very well. This is a man who flattened 8 mountains in order to practice domineering. Garp continued, your job today is to try to eliminate the pirates you see. I will not take action unless it is absolutely necessary. I understand, teacher. Garp was stunned and confused about the title teacher. Sail. Set sail. Garp gave an order, and the warship set sail and sailed slowly on the sea. Everyone on the warship looked at Shin Yuan, all very curious about this Garp disciple. After all, it was a friendship that helped me move once. Some people couldn't help it immediately. Brother, who was your grandfather? Shin Yuan's face darkened. What do you think? The Marine soldier patted his thigh regretfully. That. Everyone just chatted about each other. Just like that, we gradually sailed towards dangerous waters. I don't know how long it took. A pirate ship is slowly approaching in the distance. We are rushing towards our ship at this moment. Come to life. Shin Yuan moonwalk rose into the air and threw a kick towards the pirate ship. The violent shock wave cut a gap in the deck. The turbulent seawater immediately seeped out. The crew members on the pirate ship were suddenly shocked. Someone is attacking. Someone is attacking. Shin Yuan stepped on the moonwalk and jumped to the local deck, clenched his fist and hit a pirate on the head. Bang! The huge force caused the pirate to lose consciousness immediately and fall on the deck. Seeing this scene, several pirates with weapons in their hands rushed over with evil eyes. Zhihui's predicted attack worked, dodging Lagao's attack. One hand grabbed the collar of one of the pirates. The other hand punched another pirate like a heavy cannon. Another sound came out. Shun Yuan carried the pirate and bombarded the mast with all his strength, breaking the mast directly. Pick up the mast casually. Follow the pirates who are about to move and strike again. Dong dong dong. A series of sounds came out one after another. At this time, Garp held up his binoculars and stared at the battlefield in the distance, which made Garp wonder. Lieutenant General Garp, are you okay? Bogart said worriedly. Garp waved his hand indifferently. At this time, Shin Yuan has entered the state, and the mast in his hand is like Shinigami's sickle. It's like collecting corn stalks one after another. You've had enough trouble. The pirate captain kicked open the door to the captain's room and pointed a long knife with a cold light in his hand towards Shin Yuan. Shin Yuan threw away the mast and moved his hands and feet. Finally, here comes an interesting guy. Before the captain could finish speaking, Shun Yuan burst out. With the blessing of Moonwalk and Shaver, the speed is amazing. A punch suddenly hit his chin. The captain was shocked. The long knife slashed out, and the sharp blade cut open Shun Yuan's chest. A handful of blood flowed out instantly, but Shun Yuan punched again regardless. You're crazy. You're crazy. The captain panicked. He doesn't want his life? This life-for-life style of play put a lot of pressure on him. During the hesitation, he didn't even hold the long sword, but was kicked away by Shun Yuan. Shin Yuan launched another attack. He stretched out his finger and aimed at the captain's chest. Point the gun. The huge force penetrated the chest, and the captain couldn't help but vomit a mouthful of blood. Before it was over, Shin Yuan grabbed the opponent's neck and smashed the wall of the captain's cabin. I don't know when there was a faint black light on my right hand. Shin Yuan didn't notice and suddenly shot out with his right hand. Armed and domineering? Garp was amazed and kept looking through the telescope. What is unbelievable is that Shen Yuan actually hit the enemy's head so hard that his face was lifeless, and he fell straight to the ground. Shen Yuan did not dare to be careless and raised the pirate captain's sword. Kill the pirates who are wailing on the ground one by one. So far, the pirate group that was about to go to sea was completely destroyed, and they all fell under Shen Yuan's iron fist. Well done. Shen Yuan returned to the deck. Garp patted his shoulder with a smile on his face, a look of relief on his face. Mr. Bogart, this knife looks different. Could you please take a look at it for me? Bogart took the knife and began to observe it carefully. Garp happily bandaged Shen Yuan's wounds, his eyes full of joy. Brother, you are so awesome. The sailors are excited. The battle just now is simple, rough, and shocking. This life-and-death fighting style is so satisfying that even this group of sailors can't hold it back. They wish they could take on an entire pirate group by themselves. Bogart hesitated to speak, but finally sighed heavily. This knife may be a good and sharp knife. If you like it, keep it for your own use. Bogart looked at the knife up and down, thought for a moment and spoke again. The shape of this knife is very strange. It is not like the knives produced in that place at all. Therefore, it is really difficult to determine its origin. Shen Yuan nodded slightly, then turned around. He shouted loudly towards the sailors who were preparing to clean up the battlefield. Don't forget my scabbard. Before the words were spoken, the sailors who were cleaning the battlefield had already understood and made an okay gesture one after another, and rushed to the battlefield like the wind. Shen Yuan stared at the sharp knife in his hand and fell into deep thought. A domineering name springs to mind. I gave this sword the name Swallowing the Sky, which embodies the ambition to swallow mountains and rivers. Hearing this, Bogart showed a hint of admiration unnoticeably. After a moment, a Marine soldier respectfully presented the scabbard. Shen Yuan put the knife into the scabbard neatly, with a fierce look on his face. The group continued to move forward, and all the small pirate groups they encountered were easily defeated by Shen Yuan without causing any ripples. However, an accident broke this peace. A pirate ship approached slowly in the distance, and Garp showed a rare look of solemnity. He stood up and stared into the distance. It's the Red Foss, Bogart said with a heavy expression. Hey, Lieutenant General Garp, you're fine? Shanks stood at the bow of the boat, and Garp frowned as a loud voice came out. Is this little brother a Marine recruit? Shanks said cheerfully. Shanks, why are you still wandering in the East China Sea? The two ships approached. Shanks boarded the warship. In his early years, Conqueror's dominance had not yet reached the realm of heaven-defying, and he only had a sense of oppression. At this moment, Shen Yuan stared at the red-haired man, but something suddenly seemed wrong. A head of red hair as blazing as flames, and a few faint scars looming over his left eye. A western sword was slung across his waist. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle, but as gentle as water. Shen Yuan's eyes gradually became hot, like burning flames, staring at the red hair. It's like looking at an attractive tall leek. At this time, the knife in his hand also reacted. A faint black light flashed, and it was extremely active. This scene made the red-haired man stunned, and he cursed in his mind, "Lousy is not fucking gay." The red-haired man coughed quietly, turned to Garp and asked, Lieutenant General Garp, how are you doing lately? Garp shook his hand angrily, not bothering to deal with the red hair. This little brother, your eyes are really strange. The red-haired man asked Shen Yuan with confusion on his face. Shanks, the famous pirate in this sea, do you want to fight with me? Shanks smiled. Another time? Shen Yuan knew that he was no match, but he just wanted to challenge the future four emperors. After all, the rewards for these two stages are different. There was silence. Garp spoke slowly. What are you doing here? The red-haired man thought for a moment, then said calmly, Lieutenant General Garp, Luffy is probably the son of destiny. When Garp heard this, he became extremely angry. He raised his iron fist and struck the red-haired man in the face. The red-haired man raised his sword to block, and the huge force shook the surrounding sailors back again and again. Asshole redhead, watch your words and deeds. The red-haired man gradually couldn't hold on any longer and swung his sword to attack the other sailors. Garp could only flash back to the sea soldier and smash the sword energy with one punch. The red-haired man temporarily fought off Garp, quickly retreated, and returned to the Redfurs. Old guy, neither you nor I can control Luffy's fate. He was born to break the shackles. After saying this, the Redfurs gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. The red-haired man stood on the bow of the boat, still smiling and waving goodbye to Garp. Upon hearing this, Garp's originally agitated mood suddenly became extremely calm, and he began to think about the meaning of this sentence. Master, fate is meant to be broken. No one can control fate, not even the highest power, not even God. Garp nodded solemnly. These words carry a lot of weight. Okay, set sail. Garp returned to normal, took out a bag of senbei from somewhere, and started eating it. After a busy day, the group returned to Windmill Village again. In the evening, Shin Yuan dragged his tired body back home. Belmir changed his dressing thoughtfully, with a caring face. Nami was also carefully wiping Shin Yuan's body. Shin Yuan checked his attributes and opened the system. Name: Shin Yuan. Age: 12 years old. Identity: Adventurer. Skills: Marine 6 Styles, LV1. Swordsmanship Grandmaster, LV1. Physical Enhancement, LV2. Agility Enhancement, LV1. Physique: 25.6/100. Agility: 13.2/100. Speed: 10.8/100. Power: 26.6/100. Level: 18. Remaining skill points: 8. Level 20 is the upper limit of the stage, and the upper limit will be increased after completing specific tasks. He nodded secretly. It seems that through actual combat, the surrounding attribute values can be obtained faster than through exercise. Add all 8 skills to physical enhancement and take another look at the unusable skills. You need level 21 to learn domineering, isn't that right? Shin Yuan's face was as gloomy as water. The rest of the open items were some life skills, which were generally very useless, and he didn't even bother to order them. His eyes noticed a skill that suddenly appeared, and he suddenly clicked on a skill plate with an armed color. Armed color? Is this something I realized in the battle just now? Shin Yuan stretched out his fist. Under Bellemir's astonished gaze, a layer of black light covered his fist, shining with dazzling light. Is this armed color hockey? Belmir finished changing the dressing and looked at the black fist in wonder. Shin Yuan faded away his armed colors, and the 3 colors of domineering energy changed with the change of the user. For example, Ka-Air's insight color can predict the short-term future. Jesus Busop and others can better assist aiming, and so on. Garp's weapon color greatly improves striking ability, while Swordsman hardens weapons and so on. The attack intensity brought by the armed color is unprecedented. This made Shin Yuan more skillful in the subsequent battles. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Now Shin Yuan even felt that he could still fight fiercely all night. Of course, it was a night of fierce battle with pirates. Shin Yuan touched the heads of little Nami and Nuachigao. He smiled, held the little hands of Nami and Nokigo, walked to the study room, and began to study the mysteries of the sea chart with the 2 girls. During this time, Nami was extremely interested in sea charts, and so was Shin Yuan. After all, sailing on the sea requires many skills. Brother! Luffy ran over and looked anxiously at the house where Shin Yuan lived, shouting anxiously. Shin Yuan heard Luffy's cry and walked out of the study. He saw Ace and Luffy standing at the door, looking at Shin Yuan expectantly. Okay, let's go to the backyard. In the year 1509 of the Haiyuan calendar, Shin Yuan completed his practice with Garp. During this period, I followed Garp to patrol the surrounding sea areas, and then returned to Windmill Village to exercise. Therefore, the frequency of pirate sightings in the surrounding waters became less and less frequent, and finally disappeared. At the same time, Shin Yuan's level also reached the upper limit, and the first phase of the mission was opened. Same year, Shanks also came into contact with Luffy. At that time, Shin Yuan and Garp had already sailed and did not notice what was going on here. Now Garp comes back less and less frequently, and eventually he doesn't even come back once a year. Shin Yuan continued to practice and broke the shackles of class. All the accumulated experience points poured into the level, and after 5 levels in a row, it directly reached level 25. Shen Yuan added a little bit of the Haki of knowledge, and the rest of the points were added to the Haki of arms. Haiyuan calendar year 1510. Shin Yun is 14 years old. According to the development of the plot, Sabo also openly joined the team of the 3 little ones, became brothers with Shun Yuan's ace Luffy, and now continues to practice with Shun Yuan. Same year, Sabo was attacked when he went to sea and was rescued by the revolutionary dragon. Shin Yuan did not forcefully interfere with the development of other people's plots, but just let nature take its course and save some people who did not deserve to die, that's all. This year, Shin Yuan made a major decision. Go to sea. This was exactly 2 years after Shun Yuan became his grandson. Shin Yuan has a resolute face, black hair, and wears a black robe. A long knife was straddled on his waist, and a scar on his chest complemented his strong physique. There is an aura of danger all the time. It is worth mentioning that Garp also took time out of his busy schedule to see Shin Yuan off. A group of villagers stood at the entrance of the village, all watching enthusiastically as Shin Yuan slowly boarded the boat. Ace stood at the port with a solemn expression. Brother Shen Yuan, in what capacity do you go to sea? Shin Yuan was stunned and smiled slightly. Adventurer. Adventurer? Ace and Luffy were both stunned. Garp doesn't think so. He can be anything other than a pirate. He doesn't want his grandson and apprentice to become a useless pirate. Garp shouted loud and clear, Kid, don't give up the justice in your heart wherever you go. Shin Yuan waved his hand, acquiescing. Luffy also shouted excitedly, Brother, when I become stronger again, we will meet on the sea. Shun Yuan turned his back to everyone, waved lightly, stepped onto the ship built by the 4 brothers, and gradually disappeared under the watch of everyone. It is worth mentioning that the 3 of Belmere had already been sent back to Kokoja village by Garp. Therefore, Shin Yuan's first stop was Kokoja village, to visit the 3 people he had not seen for a long time. Complete the mission. Own a ship of your own. Get reward. Devil Fruit Illustrated Book *1. Publish mission. Explore this world. Randomly trigger rewards. Holy shit. Devil Fruit Illustrated Book? As soon as Shen Yuan thought, a booklet appeared in his hand. The simple pages revealed the mystery and showed the difference of this book. Shen Yuan was amazed while reading it. This is a Devil Fruit Illustrated Book. The sea was calm without any fluctuations. Due to Shen Yuan's frenzied killing of pirates in the past few years, Marine gradually became familiar with this name. Marine Headquarters, Marineland. Shen Yuan, 14 years old, practiced with Garp 2 years ago but did not join Marine. You actually became an adventurer. Garp, is this what you did? Sengoku looked at Garp with a gloomy expression, pressed his identity information on the table, and stared at Garp fiercely. Ha 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 ha, didn't that kid become a pirate? He can be considered my close disciple. Ha ha. Ha ha you. The Warring States period was extremely angry, but there was nothing they could do. Such a good seedling. Garp didn't take it by force. Garp, where do you think that kid will go? Sengoku suddenly asked with a serious look on his face. Garp pondered for a moment, but then shook his head slightly. He said in a deep voice, it might be the Great Sea Route, or it might be the East China Sea. There will always be something worthy of his nostalgia. Well, just don't cause any trouble. Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he is not a heinous pirate. Shin Yuan had no idea at this time that he had been remembered by that old guy from the Warring States period. Arriving at Kokoja village, unexpectedly, as soon as I arrived at Kokoja village, there was movement in my system. Arrived at Kokoja village. Obtain reward. Skill points *5. Shin Yuan did not hesitate to add it to the Armed Color Haki. The level of Armed Color Haki reached level 10. It reached the rank of mid-level Armed Color. Huh? Little Shin Yuan is back? A kind old lady came over with a smile. Shin Yuan smiled and nodded. At this time, Shin Yuan was carrying Tang Tian on his waist, which he had not used in recent years. At least you can master the ability to cover the weapon with the weapon color before you dare to use it, so that it can be non-destructive. He is 1.8 meters tall and has a resolute face. Wearing a black robe, the whole body shows the power of explosion. Shen Yuan exchanged a few words with the villagers and walked towards the place where his dream began. Brother Shen Yuan is back. Nami shouted happily. At this time, Nami has grown into a slim little girl. Although Nuo Qigao is a bit dark, her exquisite facial features also prove her extraordinary appearance. Brother Shen Yuan. Nuo Qigao walked into the house holding a basket of oranges. Stars began to appear in her eyes when she looked at the tall and handsome Shen Yuan. Little Shen Yuan. A bold cry came from the distance, and Shen Yuan knew without turning around that it was Belmir's voice. Sister, I went to see and came back to take a look this time. Belmire nodded. Shen Yuan's stage is not in Kokoja village, not even the East China Sea. His stage is the Grand Line, the New World, and the whole world. The family had a wonderful meal. Period. Shen Yuan kept telling stories about his travels in the East China Sea in the past few years. The thrilling battles and some beautiful and boundless islands greatly aroused Nami's curiosity. Brother Shen Yuan, can you take me to sea with you? Nami asked cautiously. Although Belmar also yearned for him, he had lost his original passion. Nami, the place I'm going to is very dangerous, so I'm sorry, I can't take you with me. I don't want my family to be implicated if something happens to me. Nami nodded sadly. He really wanted to go out to sea and have a look. But she also knows that following Shen Yuan will encounter powerful opponents, and this is for her own good. After dinner, Shen Yuan once again set sail under the farewell of a group of villagers. Well, I'll go to Shields Town for a look at the next stop, just check in and leave. I'll definitely not get involved in Luffy's affairs. After setting sail, Shen Yuan continued to practice. While practicing, he looked at the sea in the distance. The ship slowly sailed towards Shields Town, and Shen Yuan also happened to purchase a wave of supplies. In the evening, the ship docked and Shen Yuan disembarked. Arrive at Shields Town. Reward skill points *5. Shen Yuan still allocates skill points to armed color hockey. I am still level 21? What's going on? The level did not fluctuate at all, and Shen Yuan couldn't help but feel a little confused. Can't you level up only by killing your opponents? Arriving at Shields Town, Shen Yuan casually found a pub to sit down. Madam Boss, have a glass of rum? He asked the landlady for a glass of wine and was going to take a rest and take a look around. There aren't many supplies on the ship, right? Grab some. While Shen Yuan was drinking, he always listened to the conversations of the people around him intentionally or unintentionally. Things like Marine's tyranny and Roger's sea voyage. Shen Yuan didn't know how many times he heard this. Now he just wants to become stronger, keep getting stronger, and stand at the top of the world. Lady Luck is now at my house. Is it time for the owner of this highest power to change hands? After drinking all the wine in the glass, he walked out of the tavern. At this time, Shen Yuan had arrived at the small shop in the town. After purchasing some supplies on a large scale, I don't have much money left for my voyage. If I rob a bunch of Marines, will I be wanted? Shen Yuan shook his head. Anyway, what you want is a night thief. What does it have to do with my adventurer Shen Yuan? This time, son of Marine Colonel Monka, Balumabur, who had his hair parted in the middle, entered the store with a very arrogant expression. Shen Yuan frowned as he looked at the backpack and couldn't help but shout. You bumped into me, sorry. Shen Yuan didn't show any pretense. He opened his mouth and apologized. I'm sorry. Is this the end? Balumabur took out his pistol, pointed it at Shen Yuan, and prepared to shoot without hesitation. Shen Yuan frowned. Is this guy so arrogant when he is just a kid? Put down your backpack and punch Balumabur in the face. Boom. His fists are like those of a tiger, with majestic power pouring into his face. It was directly blown away by the huge force and smashed the wall of the store. The surrounding Marines were stunned. Defeat the plot character Balumabur and increase the level by 22 levels. The upgrade comes with skill points, and Shen Yuan is very satisfied. Shen Yuan picked up his backpack again. There was a rustling sound. Balumab's life and death were unknown, so the sailors had no choice but to help him up first. It's really troublesome, Shen Yuan said, walking to the shore. After stuffing a whole large bag of supplies onto the boat, I noticed the faint sound of ships sailing in the distance and couldn't help but become interested. Brothers, we? Before the leader could finish his words, a violent shock wave suddenly struck, smashing the ship into pieces in an instant. Lanjiao. It's Lanjiao. The leader is wearing a marine uniform, has a mustache, has a sinister look, and is hard to describe. Xin Yuan laughed loudly, stepped on Moonwalk to move in front of this person, and kicked out with another lawn kick. Whoosh! Lanjia's slash cut the mast straight off. While everyone on the boat was stunned, Xin Yuan rushed forward and grabbed one of the leaders, Marine, by the neck. At this time, his palm was already covered with a weapon-colored domineering force as black as ink. I'm Colonel Mouse. I'm Colonel Marine. You are provoking Marine's majesty by doing this. Xin Yuan exerted slight force on his palm, and then heard a click sound, and Colonel Mouse's neck was instantly twisted. Kill the plot character Rat, and raise the level to level 25. The rest of Marine's body was trembling, and he didn't dare to look at Xin Yuan. Xin Yuan showed off Marine's 6 moves, which proved something. The things our colonel did have become clear to the public. Either the matter is exposed and the door is cleared, or the marine traders are looting the same kind. Get all the supplies out of your ship. As soon as he finished speaking, all the Marines took action, and boxes of treasure and even food were moved to the deck. Put it on my ship, and I'll go find Colonel Marine at this base to settle the score. The Marines didn't dare to answer, and they all carried the supplies honestly. Watching Marine move all the supplies to his ship, he breathed a sigh of relief and waved his hand. You can go. As if they had been granted amnesty, everyone raised their sails and disappeared in front of Xin Yuan almost instantly. Just a little less skill. You can use the top weapon colors. Resisting the throbbing in my heart, I took advantage of the night and walked step by step towards the Stronghold Marine Base. Step into the Marine Base. At this time, the interior of the Stronghold is brightly lit. In the office, Marine Colonel Monka was sitting on the stage, thinking gloomily about the report just given by his subordinates. His son was knocked unconscious by a move, and the attacker disappeared without a trace. This made Monka very angry. Search the surrounding area vigorously, and we will not stop until we find this person. Just as Monka was thinking deeply after giving the order, a black shadow kicked the window into pieces. The visitor was wearing a black mask, holding a long knife covered in military colors in his hand, and his whole body was filled with a murderous aura. Are you the murderer who attacked my son? Monka shivered and put on the marine cloak, holding the giant axe in front of him, staring at the mysterious man in front of him. Xin Yuan rushed over quickly, swung out a sword energy, and cut Monka's axe into 2 pieces with a roar. Then his left foot stepped on Monka's chest. With this force, he jumped into the air. His right foot suddenly exerted force and kicked Monka hard on the chin. Bang! A violent crashing sound came from Monka's office, and the surrounding Marines began to gather in large numbers and rush towards Monka's office. Defeat the plot character Monka and raise the level to level 26. After the reward arrived, Xin Yuan stopped procrastinating, smashed the window, stepped on the moonwalk, and disappeared into the night. By the time the Marine soldiers arrived, I saw that Monka had collapsed in the office, making no sound, as if he was dead. But the rising and falling chest proves that he is still alive. This made the soldiers breathe a sigh of relief, and their subordinates began to deal with the aftermath, hurriedly repairing the broken battlefield. Report. A Marine soldier rushed over and was stunned for a moment when he saw the mess. Monka painfully sat up with his hands on the ground. His eyes were lifeless, and it took him a full 5 minutes to recover. Report, Colonel. We found the body of Colonel Rat on the coast of Shields Town. Monka's eyes narrowed. Crack. Why did everything bad happen to Lousy today? Monka was angry. Today's events are not allowed to be spread outside. Please help me go and take a look. Monka slowly walked towards the coast with the support of Marine soldiers. By coincidence, Xin Yuan escaped from Shields Town in a small boat. Point full, click full. Xin Yuan excitedly put all 5 skill points on Armed Color Hockey. The moment the skill is fully charged, Shen Yuan felt the gain due to the full domineering points of the armed color, and the majestic energy filled his body. This power had nowhere to release, making Shen Yuan extremely uncomfortable. His fists were covered with black-armed domineering force. There are also wisps of black mist surrounding the fist. Shen Yuan suddenly punched the sea. The sea surface suddenly produced a small spiral spray from the bottom of the sea, until the sea surface suddenly exploded, and the spray all over the sky brought up several Poseidon species with frightened faces. Shen Yuan grabbed one, pulled it out from the waist and swallowed the sky, cut the 5 Poseidon-like horses into pieces, and started cooking. Shen Yuan felt comfortable, but Monka felt uncomfortable. Looking at the rat lying on the beach, it died in an extremely cruel manner, with its throat crushed, its neck broken, and even a look of horror on its face. Monka took a breath of cold air. This state of death was enough to give him nightmares for 3 days and 3 nights. Clean up the battlefield and report the situation to the Marine headquarters truthfully. The sailor behind him was startled. Colonel Monka, didn't you say that the information should not be leaked? Monka's face darkened and he said speechlessly, "The rat is dead. What are you doing in the sea area he was responsible for?" After saying that, Monka felt pain in his chest again, and he knelt on the ground and vomited another mouthful of blood. Report to Colonel Monka that our treasury has been looted. When Monka heard this, he vomited out another mouthful of old blood. A few days into the voyage, Shen Yuan was lying on a deck chair, reading the newspaper leisurely. A lot of big things have happened recently, haven't they? In the year 1510 of the Hainan calendar, Kaido and Moria fought fiercely. Moria was defeated, and all his men were killed and the entire army was annihilated. Moonlight Moria is missing. Looking at the information in the newspaper, I thought of the missing Sabo for no reason. I don't know what happened to that boy Sabo. Shen Yuan sighed, glanced at the island gradually emerging in the distance, and smiled slightly. Get off the ship and step onto the ground in Orange Town. After receiving the reward, you can continue boarding the ship and sailing. Arrive at Orange Town. Get skill points *5. Shen Yuan continued to read the newspaper and began to think carefully. In the year 1510 of the Haiyuan calendar, Kuina would fall down the stairs and die. Should he intervene? Wouldn't it be a shameful death to fall down the stairs and die? Anyway, if I fall to death, even if I transform into a devil, I won't let old thief Oda go. After thinking about it, Shen Yuan decided to check out all these islands and then go to Isin Dojo to hone his sword skills. The blessings brought by the mechanical skills of swordsmanship are indeed unparalleled. Shen Yuan's wish is to train, swallowing heaven, into a black sword that is not inferior to the supreme sharp sword. This is every swordsman's ultimate dream. Focusing all his skill points on swordsmanship, the 6th level swordsmanship grandmaster has reached the threshold of a swordsman. There is really nothing to go to in Orange Town, and Buggy has not arrived. He doesn't know where to wander at this time, and Shen Yuan is not willing to waste time. Marine Headquarters, Marineland. What? Colonel Mouse died? Sung was old-faced, turned red and white at this time, looking very angry about Shen Yuan killing Marine. Okay, I understand. Send another colonel to take charge. The Warring States period had a gloomy look on its face. It was because of what Roger said before his death that he ushered in the deeply hated Age of Discovery. Damn Roger, damn Roger. Garp ate the sunbae with an innocent look on his face. He also grabbed a newspaper and looked at it with relish, pointing while eating. Garp, are you really not considering being promoted to general? Garp waved his hand and answered. Warring States sighed softly and began to deal with busy official duties. Reporting to Warring States Fleet Admiral, a sailor reported that someone saw the appearance of the colonel who attacked the rat. Let him in. A sailor staggered in and looked nervously at the Marine Fleet Admiral in front of him. Report to the Warring States Fleet Admiral. What's wrong? Say it. The sailor was already very nervous, but seeing Fleet Admiral's face break down in front of him, he became even more frightened. Warring States seemed to realize his gaffe, relaxed his attitude, and waved his hand. Seeing that the Warring States period has eased a lot, The Marine told him everything that happened in Shield's town like he was pouring beans. At this time, Sengoku's face grew darker as he listened, and he looked at Garp beside him with an angry look. Okay, you go down now. The sailors were relieved. He quit the Fleet Admiral office and breathed a sigh of relief. After Haibing walked out of the office, Songhua found out Shen Yuan's identity information. Garp, is he your good grandson? Garp was slightly startled. What? See for yourself. He took over the identity information of Warring States period and began to read through it. Let's end this matter. You also know what a mouse is. Garp didn't care. Didn't care. Garp, this is the last time. Warring States was extremely angry. For Garp's sake, Shen Yuan was not wanted this time. The next day, Shen Yuan arrived at the new island, and the moment he stepped on the ground, the reward arrived. Arrive at Ziluobu village. Get bonus skill points *5. Swordsmanship Grandmaster has reached level 11, and Shen Yuan is now a veritable swordsman. Walking into the island all the way, Shen Yuan felt very confused when he didn't see the plot character Usopp. Hey, I am. You are a brat with 8,000 men, right? Your father is Jesus Boo, the dirty pirate, right? Usopp was stunned by these words and didn't know what to say. Evil little pirate, I will get to know you personally. The majestic momentum suddenly erupted, making several little ghosts tremble all over and sweat profusely. The extremely fast fist suddenly hit Usopp. Seeing the fist getting closer and closer, Usopp was so scared that he closed his eyes. Be prepared for the arrival of Shinigami. But after a few seconds, the attack still hasn't come. Usopp tentatively opened his eyes and looked at Shen Yuan, who had already withdrawn his fist. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Evil little pirate, you are not worthy of being killed by me myself. Sure enough, being intimidated by momentum is also a form of defeat. Defeat the plot character Usopp and raise the level to level 27. Usopp was so frightened that he froze in place and did not dare to move. You are lucky today. Shen Yuan stopped looking for trouble with Usopp, turned around and went straight to Princess Kaya's villa. Usopp finally came to his senses and gasped for air. Who? The momentum just now, different from pirates, different from Marine. In short, he doesn't look like a good person or a bad person. He is a very weird person. Usopp stood up staggeringly, looking at Shen Yuan, who had walked away, and just stood there. At this time, Shen Yuan. All the way to the door of Kaya Villa, Shen Yuan was greeted by Meili, the housekeeper, who looked like a pleasant goat. Please call Krabater to come over. I have something to ask him. Excuse me, who are you? Meili asked doubtfully. I am his friend. Please call Krabater out. Meili thought for a moment, then turned and walked into the villa. Who's looking for me? Crow pushed up his glasses and walked out, wearing a black dress, and the brooch was an indescribable shape. Who are you? Crow narrowed his eyes and looked at the mysterious young man in front of him. Excuse me for a moment, Mr. Crow. Crow was startled and couldn't help but panic inside. Has my story been exposed? Impossible. After careful consideration, he followed Shen Yuan down the mountain. What's the matter with you? Shen Yuan couldn't help but punched Chloe's glasses to pieces. Crow held on to his glasses without lenses and looked at Shen Yuan with a gloomy expression. Cielo, I know all the things you did. Crow was shocked again. Don't even think about leaving today. After saying that, Crow clapped his hands and said, 3 figures slowly appeared on the hillside in the distance, threatening Shen Yuan as they surrounded him from all sides. I don't know who you are, but why does this kid look so human-like? Does he wear glasses, or is he heart-shaped? Holy shit, let me finish. Crow said again, you will die here today. After all, the dead will not. These 2 brothers are fat and thin fairy boys. One is tall, one is short, one is fat, and the other is thin. They are a bit like boys giving money. We have a great harvest today. Crow's face darkened and he wanted to say something. Just when I was about to speak, he suddenly saw Shen Yuan suddenly burst into flames, pull out the swallowing sky, and slash it directly on the body of the Catman brother. Huge power penetrates the chest of the Catman brother. The sudden attack caught everyone by surprise. By the time the others reacted, the Catman brother had already made no sound. Thumbs up 1-2. Look at me. This time, it was Shun Yuan's turn to be speechless. He raised his foot and fired an explosive shot toward Zhang Yao. Before he could dodge, Zhang Yao was hit straight away. The strong slash left a hideous wound on Zhang Yao's chest, and he couldn't help but vomit a large mouthful of blood. Vomit! He swung a punch again and hit the Catman brother hard on the head. The same power, the same attack method, the same death method. The head exploded suddenly. The blood mist spread outward, and the whole valley was filled with the smell of blood. Crow was dumbfounded on the spot. His long claws had already been stretched out. Spoon! Before Crow finished casting the spell, Shen Yuan's attack had arrived. Itoryu! Ai! After the words fell, Crow knelt on the ground weakly, dying. Shen Yuan raised Tunshin and slashed with his sword again. Cut off Zhang Yao's neck with one knife. Sheath the knife. Shen Yuan turned around and left calmly. Kill the Cat brothers and Zhang Yao in the story mission, defeat Crow, and raise the level to level 31. I spent all my remaining balance on the swordsmanship Grandmaster. Shen Yuan felt very at ease with the level 16 swordsmanship. Suppressing Tunshin's violent strength, he resolutely sailed to the last stop of his journey to the East China Sea. Rogue Town, Donghai, Rogue Town, the town where the system begins and ends. Because One Piece Roger was executed in this town, this area has become a gathering place for a large number of pirates. Daisaichi, how many pirates were captured today? Smoker holds 2 cigars in his mouth and has silver hair that is 37%. Wearing a marine cloak, with a pair of sea towers and stone hands behind his back emitting a cold light. At this moment, he was sitting on a 3-wheeled motorcycle, looking at the people around him with confidence. Report to Colonel Smoker, no pirates were captured today. Smoker breathed a sigh of relief. The movement of pirates has indeed become much smaller in recent days. Perhaps it is because Garp often visits the East China Sea. Therefore, the East China Sea is called the weakest sea. Crack, snap. There was a sound of footsteps. Shen Yuan is still wearing a black robe. He has upgraded his swordsmanship Grandmaster to the full level by relying on the 5 skill points obtained by punching in. It is no exaggeration to say that if Kaido now uses Shen Yuan's strongest slash to hit the cliff, he will be seriously injured, and there is no chance to counterattack. Smoker noticed Shen Yuan walking in the distance, narrowed his eyes slightly, and just stared at it. Seeing Shen Yuan walking past him, Smoker was suddenly startled. That person? Smoker was stunned and looked at Shen Yuan with a horrified look. What's wrong with that person? Mr. Smoker? Dasky was very surprised and quickly raised his head and looked around. The look in that person's eyes is wrong. It's like... Scenes flashed through Smoker's mind. It felt like being stared at by a wild beast. Dasky was stunned and stared at it at a loss. Shen Yuan didn't pay attention to Smoker. At this time, he was thinking about how to find Rayleigh. If Rayleigh is not in Rogue Town, he is in Sabaody. When the time comes, go directly through the Grand Line to the land of Sabaody and complete your goal of finding a Murloc companion. When sailing on the sea, it is essential to have a Grandmaster water-based partner. Wait a moment. Smoker's voice reached Shen Yuan's ears. His body froze, he looked back at Smoker, and then stood there waiting for Smoker to come forward. Wait a minute, who are you? Smoker said. Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan? Are you Shen Yuan? I have heard Lieutenant General Garp say over the years that you are Lieutenant General Garp's grandson? Shen Yuan's face darkened. This old boy goes around saying that I am his grandson? Why is it so awkward? He was stunned for a moment. He didn't refute and nodded. How about it? Do you want to spar with me? Shen Yuan is happy. Why don't you want the experienced baby that comes to your door? Okay, I'm happy to accompany you. At this moment on the coast, some fishermen who were preparing to go fishing did not leave immediately. Instead, he stared at the duel on the field with great interest. After all, he might only see this kind of scene once in his life. Smoker reached behind his back and held Hailu Shershur's hand tightly, his eyes fixed on Shen Yuan in front of him. Looking at Shen Yuan again, he didn't even get into an attacking stance. This made Smoker feel insulted. In the past few years that he had been stationed in Rog Town, not to mention dominating the East China Sea, he was somewhat famous. Who do you think Laozi is? Laozi is the White Hunter. White Snake. Its arms turned into smoke, wrapping around like a lion majesty. The right hand touches the handle of the knife. The left hand is covered with the weapon color and grabs the smoke arm. The right hand pulls out the swallowing sky and strikes instantly. Smoker was shocked when he saw the black sword energy in front of him. So he hurriedly stepped back, retracted his arm, and narrowly dodged the blow. How is it? Do you want to fight again? Smoker took a big breath of air. This feeling of oppression was unprecedented. White fist. Smoke fist strikes again. Creak. Shen Yuan held Smoker's fist and applied a little force. Smoker felt pain and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He ducked again and came to Smoker. The black-armed domineering force covered the surface of the fist, and it was aimed at Smoker's face and punched. Bang! Smoker flew upside down for more than 10 meters, and the cigar flew into the air, drawing an arc of smoke. Smoker coughed out a mouthful of blood and pushed himself up to get up. Hailu Shirshir stabbed out instantly. This scene shocked and frightened Dasky. What surprised me was the swordsmanship of Shen Yuan in front of me, but what scared me was that Smoker would be beaten to death by this man. Regardless of his injuries, Smoker suddenly attacked again. This time he used the 10 hands of Sea Tower Stone. The sharp sound of breaking through the air was heard. Smoker launched the offensive with the attitude of risking his life. Call out. Shen Yuan refused to dodge and punched again. The moment the 10 hands collided with the fist, the 10 hands form could no longer be maintained. I saw that the 10 hands began to break inch by inch, and finally the entire 10 hands were shattered. Shen Yuan's fist did not lose its power and still hit Smoker's face hard. Bang! Smoker flew out for the second time. But this time there was no movement, and he couldn't move even if he wanted to. Weak and pitiful ability user. I don't know how high the world is. How can a loser like you be as famous as Kakashi? Shen Yuan sighed lightly and turned to look at Dasky, who was stunned. How about it? Do you want to try it too? Dasky trembled all over, but his pursuit of swordsmanship defeated the fear in his heart, and he raised the long sword in his hand and pointed it at Shen Yuan. Good swordsmanship. As the highest etiquette of a swordsman, I will use the strongest slash to fight you. Dasky's eyes were determined. He nodded and raised the knife in his hand. Showers. One sword style. Black light funeral. Shen Yuan was very satisfied with this name. A swordsman must have his own style. Then I heard a flash of sword light, and then they collided together. Without any suspense, Dasky's attack was easily resolved, and then a terrifying wound appeared on Dasky's body. A hideous wound was exposed on Dasky's chest, which was extremely terrifying. Bang! Defeat the story characters Smoker and Dusky, and the level will be increased by 33. Shen Yuan nodded secretly. Now he is level 33. When he reaches level 40, he can learn Conqueror's Haki. Dasky forced herself to stand up and smiled reluctantly. Thank you, Senior, for your guidance, which made me realize the lack of my own strength. After saying this, Dasky suddenly fell to the ground. Smoker also woke up leisurely. In fact, the two of them were not seriously injured. Shen Yuan, what do you mean by those words? Smoker gasped violently, and Marine's cloak flew to nowhere. Smoker, there is nothing wrong with blindly developing fruit abilities, but the mistake is that you are too weak. Smoker's face darkened, and his body, which was already in severe pain, became even worse. If you don't mind, I'm going to the Grand Line next. Follow me out to sea. It can be as short as a few months or as long as a year. During this time, I will guide you in practicing domineering so that you can have a place in the new world. Smoker's eyes lit up, but it got dark again. This guy wants me to switch jobs. Marine becomes a pirate. Are you going to be a pirate? Smoker asked tentatively. No, it's an adventurer. My identity is an adventurer. Shen Yuan said firmly. Then why are you going to the Grand Line? Of course I want to see this world. By the way, are you a pirate in the Grand Line? Didn't your mother teach you not to be discriminatory about identity when you were a child? Smoker nodded and shook his head again. His CPU was burning. But in order to become stronger, what if you receive hundreds of millions of punishments? Boy, that's right. A distant voice came from a distance, wearing gray hair, reading glasses, and a white cape and flip-flops. Who else could it be? Rayleigh. One Piece's right wrist. Boy, are you interested in having a fight with me? Rayleigh witnessed the whole battle that just happened, and the warlike genes in his body were faintly pulsing at this moment. Of course, after all, you are the right arm of One Piece, Pluton Rayleigh. Rayleigh smiled. You came here specifically to see me? Yes and no. Rayleigh was stunned for a moment, but then he drew out his long knife and took a stance. And Shen Yuan here also drew his sword and stood up, his eyes flashing red. What a dangerous junior! Rayleigh smiled. Life or death was unpredictable. A high-speed slash came towards me. The latter swung out a flying slash without dodging, and the two collided with each other, sending out short-lived air waves and circles. Call out. The supreme fast shoes are coming at a rapid speed. Rayleigh's right foot suddenly covered with armed domineering energy and kicked straight towards Shen Yuan. The right side of Shen Yuan's face was passed dangerously and dangerously. Shen Yuan held Rayleigh's ankle with his backhand, used the former's strength to turn it around, and then threw it heavily to the ground. It wasn't over yet. He quickly used his domineering force to hit Rayleigh's body. Rayleigh turned over and dodged, and swung a sword again to confuse the opponent. The spectacle lenses under his glasses shone slightly, and his right leg was covered with domineering energy again. A kick hit Shen Yuan's arm. Bang! Black and red lightning surrounded the two of them. Conqueror's entanglement. Old man, you have a lot of work. After saying this, Shen Yuan suddenly felt that his internal organs were a little displaced. Shen Yuan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. There was no need to suppress it at this moment. The top-notch armed color-covered Tunshin also exploded with unprecedented power, and black mist continued to flow on the blade. The knife was swung violently. Rayleigh hurriedly drew a knife to fight with him. The two were like two bolts of lightning constantly shuttling through the air, and the sound of ping, 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 ping could be heard from above, continuing this excellent battle. At this time, Rayleigh was so strong that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. This weapon was probably as good as a garp. Clang, clang, ding-dong. The two figures gradually overlapped, and the fierce battle continued. Thrilling collision sounds continued to be heard, and Smoker on the side was dumbfounded by this scene. A battle between two powerhouses without fruit. He is unprecedented in this life. Boom. The black sword flashed and Rayleigh was instantly chopped away. Bang! Rayleigh hit the ground. Lanjiao. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The combination of Longue and Shave. Release it multiple times in a short period of time to form a continuous slashing attack. Ding ding ding. Rayleigh took Lan's leg in an orderly manner and was stunned for a moment. Another black slash. Rayleigh's eyes widened. He dodged in advance due to the perception of seeing and hearing, and narrowly avoided the slashing attack. This slashing attack completely lowered the altitude of Rog Town Pier by several meters. A big bead of sweat quietly fell to the ground. Rayleigh adjusted her glasses. Her pressure suddenly increased. One sword style. Black flash. Combining the quick sword drawing and shaving, the swift and violent slashing strikes again. Rayleigh drew her knife again to fight. Chong. The sword in Rayleigh's hand was knocked behind him by the sword. Gradually, Rayleigh became more and more unable to do what she wanted. Due to an oversight, he was hit hard in the face with a punch. He flew over 10 meters and landed next to Smoker. Boom. Rayleigh stood up staggeringly, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and was about to speak. Before he could finish pretending, a mouthful of blood gushed out from his mouth. Wow. A large mouthful of blood fell on the ground. Rayleigh gasped violently and was extremely weak. Seeing the former's appearance, Shen Yuan stopped attacking. Defeat the plot character Rayleigh and raise the level to level 38. Xin Yuan was overjoyed, allocated the skill points reasonably, and opened the attribute bar eagerly. Open the system properties bar. Name, Shun Yuan. Age, 14 years old. Identity, adventurer. Skills, Marine 6 styles, LV1. Sword skills Grandmaster, full level. Physical enhancement, LV11. Agility enhancement, LV1. Strength enhancement, LV1. Speed enhancement, LV1. Armed color hockey, full level. Wisdom color hockey, LV4. Physique, 99.6/100. Agility, 43.5/100. Speed, 50.6/100. Power, 70.6/100. Level, 38. Through this period of fighting, have your surrounding attributes increased significantly? At the same time, by maxing out the enhanced skills, your physical attributes will reach their peak, which is just around the corner. Xin Yuan specializes in offense, and his strategy of exchanging injuries for injuries frightens the enemy, so speed and agility are not valued much by him. Most of his current attributes are honed in battles. Rayleigh took out a bottle of wine and drank it leisurely, looking at Xin Yuan in front of him with a smile. As expected of Garp's grandson, Rayleigh raised his head and took a sip of wine, wiped his mouth, and sighed heavily. Strong domineering spirit and superb swordsmanship. Young man, what is your dream? Rayleigh looked at Shun Yuan with interest, waiting for Shun Yuan's answer. Me. Rayleigh nodded. Shuffle the world. Rayleigh was startled, then smiled in relief. Where is your next journey? The Grand Line. How about I accompany you for a while? I also want to go to the Sabaody Islands to settle down. Smoker's face darkened. Marine was traveling with pirates, and there was an adventurer? I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Smoker muttered softly. Of course, but you have to work. Rayleigh chuckled and nodded. Xin Yuan ignored the others, turned around and walked towards the execution platform. Rayleigh Smoker also followed. Dasky Yu woke up and was stunned on the spot. Where is this? The surrounding environment was in a mess and dilapidated. Xin Yuan came to the execution platform and just stared quietly without saying a word. He was actually searching for plot characters around him. Bartolomeo, where are you? Xin Yuan thought secretly in his heart and couldn't help but start looking around. Rayleigh frowned. What are you looking for? After looking around but not finding it, Xin Yuan simply stopped looking. He took another deep look at the execution platform and left this town of beginning and end. Marine headquarters, Marineland. What? You said Smoker and Dusky are missing? Warring States Fleet Admiral, Colonel Smoker may have followed Shen Yuan out of Rog Town. Warring States took a sharp breath and slammed his hand on the table. Bang! What else happened? The sailor who reported the story tried to think back for a while, and then said again, Shen Yuan and Pluton Rayleigh met, and a big battle broke out at the Rog Town pier. Who won? Warring States asked eagerly. Maybe it's Shun Yuan. Hiss. Warring States gasped. Although he had expected this result, he still couldn't control his shock when he heard it with his own ears. Hang up the phone and listen to the report during this period. It was all a small-scale battle at first, but now Rayleigh appears. This has to be taken seriously by Marine. Killing Colonel Marine, killing Django, who had a bounty of 8 million Baileys, and his Catman brothers, and then defeating the 2 Duskies in Rog Town. These are nothing. The most important thing is that Shun Yuan defeated Rayleigh, but he didn't kill him. This proves that Shun Yuan is not against the pirates. Xin Yuan is both good and evil, and is an extremely unstable factor. Come here, prepare a reward list. Warring State sighed, Garp, we really can't cover up this time. Ga. Xin Yuan touched the newspaper pigeon's head, bought a newspaper, lay on the recliner, and started reading. Here is your reward list. Rayleigh held the wine bottle in one hand and a brand new reward list in the other. How much? Xin Yuan asked urgently. The bounty is 530 million Baileys. Shinigami, Xin Yuan. Above the reward list is a photo of Xin Yuan touching the hilt of the knife with one hand and making a fist with the other. Xin Yuan smiled and saw that his glorious deeds were recorded in the newspaper. Rayleigh, It seems I stepped on you to get the position. It seems that Sengoku, an old man, wants to praise me. He was given the title of Shinigami at the age of 14, but that's exactly what I wanted. Rayleigh smiled and said nothing, walked to Shin Yuan, and checked the contents of the newspaper with him. Smoker stood at the bow of the boat and steered the ship with a dark face, his face turning pale and green in turns. It seemed like he was here to be the helmsman. Donghai, Kokoja village. Nami was running around the village with Shin Yuan's reward, jumping up and down with joy. Nami, don't run around. Belmer was holding a large basket of oranges behind Nami and kept telling her, 530 million Baileys. 530 million Baileys. Brother Shin Yuan is so awesome. Jin stared at the contents of the newspaper with a gloomy face, exhaled and said slowly, fortunately, this kid didn't kill innocent people indiscriminately, otherwise Lousy would have had to beat him to death. Bellmeyer smiled and said nothing, staring at Aegean lovingly. If you want to beat little Shen Yuan to death, you must get past me first. Aegean blushed, threw down the newspaper, and ran away. Belmere laughed and picked up the newspaper on the ground, then looked into the distance. I hope you can really realize your dream. East China Sea, Windmill Village. Garp took Shen Yuan's reward list and posted it in the tavern, and boldly ordered a glass of wine. Have a drink. Maginot smiled and handed Garp a glass of wine, and slowly said, Why is Mr. Garp so happy today? My grandson defeated Rayleigh head-on. The first bounty was 530 million belly. Garp didn't care about the bounty on his grandson. Even if he was scolded by Sengoku, it didn't matter. Your grandson is really amazing. Maginot also agreed. Old man, why didn't you? Ace looked at the bulletin board where the pirate bounty orders were posted and saw Shin Yuan's bounty order at the first sight. Brother's bounty is so high? Luffy also noticed the bounty and his eyes were full of little stars. Yes, old man, brother. What did he do? Garp glanced at the two little ones behind him and threw a newspaper over. See for yourself. Luffy couldn't read, but Ace knew a little bit and started reading to Luffy. Shinigami Shinyun went to sea as an adventurer, killed Colonel Mouse in Shield's Town, killed the pirate Zango and his men when passing through Shirabu Village, and defeated Marine Colonel Smoker in Rogue Town. The final battle with Pluton Rayleigh ended in a big victory. Ace's expression gradually became frightened as he chanted, and he fought with Pluton Rayleigh and won. Well, Ace suddenly remembered what Shin Yuan had said to him before. No matter what your identity is, you must have your own beliefs, your own ideals. Ace ignored the noisy people in the tavern, sat aside, and began to think deeply. East China Sea, an unknown island. Come on, drink. The red-haired Shanks and everyone were having a banquet, and a cheerful atmosphere filled the entire island. Shanks, there's a very interesting boy here. Hawkeye walked over slowly, holding a brand new reward list in his hand. Oh. The red-haired man doubtfully took the reward list from Hawkeye's hand, and while reading it, he and Hawkeye started reminiscing. Eagle Eye, you? Before he finished speaking, the red-haired man saw Shin Yuan's name at first sight. This name was familiar to him. This is the kid who wanted to challenge himself back then. Who would have thought that he would now have a bounty of 500 million? I know this kid. The red-haired man smiled lightly. Hawkeye became interested and continued. This boy's swordsmanship seems to be very superb. The hand he touched the hilt of the sword. It's Luiying's armed color. The red-haired man said solemnly. If you can, you go to the Grand Line now and strangle him in the cradle. This may affect your plan. Hawkeye crossed his arms, wore a top hat, and the black knife behind his back revealed a sinister temperament. The red-haired man shook his head and did not continue the topic. Instead, he touched his broken arm. I've already placed my bet. The red-haired man sighed. This kid is very ambitious and difficult to control. Hawkeye took a deep breath and then said seriously, If you have the chance, you must learn the swordsmanship with this brat. After saying this, Hawkeye also took a rare glass of wine and started a banquet with the red-haired pirates. People like Kaido and Charlotte Linlin didn't react much when they saw this reward order. White-bearded Edward Newgate held Shan Yuan's reward list, and the more he looked at it, the more he liked it. This boy is Garp's grandson. If I recruit this boy to be my son, wouldn't I be a generation younger than Garp? The white-bearded old man's face darkened, and he raised his head and looked at the sea. A great genius actually went to sea as an adventurer. Maybe this is his isolation from this world. Whitebeard shook his head and laughed dumbly. Marco stood aside stunned, looking at his father's appearance, curious for no reason. Dad, whose reward order are you looking at? Marco stepped forward with a smile and took the reward order from Whitebeard. Shinigami Shinyuan? What a weird name. Marco smiled and shook his head. This kid is quite capable. Being able to defeat the old man Rayleigh head-on is enough to prove his strength. Marco was furious. What if Marine fabricated the news? As we all know, pictures can't be edited. Whitebeard laughed boldly. Goo la la la, goo la la la. The world has been riddled with holes for a long time, and we need such a maverick kid. Marco and the others stared blankly at their father's appearance and laughed together for no reason. East China Sea, Orange Town. The clown buggy has arrived at Orange Town and quickly occupied it. He is holding the red-haired bounty in his hand, and the super newcomer who was born in Donghai. Red-haired Shanks, this bastard, lousy can't spare him. And what's going on with this kid? The first bounty was 500 million belly? Could it be that he blew up the Marine headquarters? Buggy was very interested. If I meet this guy, I will get the reward of 500 million belly. Brother, dinner is ready. Young ones, get ready for the party. Profound. The one who had the biggest reaction was Akainu, who was still a general at this moment. Kizaru Akiji didn't take it seriously. He was used to this kind of people for a long time. This is Lieutenant General Garp's grandson, Akainu said with a gloomy look. Oh. Kizaru became interested, grabbed the newspaper next to him, and started reading. The descendants of Lieutenant General Garp are really monsters, Kizaru said half-jokingly and half-seriously. Akiji also nodded silently without speaking. This brat deserves to die. Akainu walked out of the conference room fiercely and slammed the door. This scene was a bit like Danzo. 49.98, 49.99, 5,000. After training, Shinyuan put down the barbell and lay on his side on the recliner. My physique is just a little bit short of reaching its peak. It's just the last step. Thinking like this, Shinyuan silently looked at his attribute values. Boy Shinyuan, the road ahead is Gemini Cape. Do you want to stop? Rayleigh pointed to a lighthouse in the distance and asked Shinyuan. Shinyuan nodded while eating breakfast. Master, is it okay to eat? Dasky humbly stood behind Shinyuan holding a plate. After a night of instruction, Dasky had made some progress in swordsmanship. It's okay. Not bad. Keep working hard. Dasky smiled and nodded, very happy. Smoker was still at the helm, little black and black. The ship broke through the waves and moved forward slowly in the breeze. A group of people entered the waters of Twin Capes. This time, a whale suddenly charged. The huge tail attacks the ship directly. At this moment, Shinyuan moved. It flew into the air on the moonwalk and kicked its tail violently. The attacks from both sides instantly caused huge waves, shaking the surrounding Poseidon species and causing them to swim back dozens of meters. The whale was dissatisfied and slapped one tail again. Shinyuan still pushed him with one kick. Poseidon's around. Arminos, fight if you want, don't take us with you. The whale Laboon was so violently attacked that he became unstable and retreated a few meters before regaining his balance. Laboon, I have a secret here that you want to know, but you have to agree to one condition. Laboon slapped the water suddenly, expressing confusion. Laboon, I know something about the Lombard pirates. In exchange, you are not allowed to hurt yourself anymore, and then wait for Brook to come to you. Do you understand? When Laboon heard this, he immediately became docile and listened quietly to Shen Yuan's words. Rayleigh on the boat also listened to Shen Yuan's story with great interest, seeming to be reminded of Roger's travels. After the Lombard pirates crossed the Red Continent, the captain was infected with an unknown virus on an island. Finally, he asked his companions to leave him and continue sailing. One of them died of illness on the island, and then Brook was appointed as the next captain. After that, They passed through the Devil's Triangle to fight other pirate groups. Since the enemy's weapons were poisonous, all members of the Lombard pirates were injured and poisoned during the battle, and there was no place for treatment in the Devil's Triangle. In the end, all the members were poisoned and died. Only Brook was resurrected after his death due to the power of the underworld fruit. After Shun Yuan finished speaking, his body also fell on Laboon's head, and he gently stroked Laboon's scar-covered head. Don't be discouraged. There are still survivors of the Lumba pirates. He will come. After this, you must take good care of your body. Do you understand? Laboon splashed the water happily and cheered a few times. www. Shun Yuan returned to the ship with satisfaction, continued to let Smoker take the helm, and sailed into the interior of the Red Earth continent. Kurokas witnessed the entire incident, smiled as he watched the ship in front of him sail into the Red Earth continent, and welcomed everyone into the Red Earth continent with a smile. Old guy, don't you recognize me? Rayleigh smiled and stepped forward to hug Kurokas. Kurokas said with tears streaming down his face, Rayleigh, why are you here? Even Rayleigh couldn't help but shed tears at this time. We are old comrades we haven't seen for several years. This friendship is extremely precious. How have you been lately? The two just started chatting without paying any attention to the crowd. Shin Yuan didn't care either. Seeing the rewards for checking into the Red Earth continent arrive in his account, his little face smiled like a flower. Arrive at the Red Earth continent and get bonus skill points *5. Shin Yuan looked at the 5 skill points and hesitantly added them all to the color of knowledge. Entering Kuroka's hut, he looked at the old ship's doctor again. He didn't have any intention of challenging him. He just quietly listened to the two old friends reminiscing about the past and what happened in the past. Story. Drinking wine, eating cakes, and listening to stories. Isn't it a happy thing? A few hours later. Let's go. Rayleigh glanced at Shun Yuan with unfinished thoughts, stood up, and prepared to board the ship. Kurokas also saw everyone off and said goodbye to everyone with a smile. Looking at the docile Laboon in front of him, he breathed a sigh of relief and finally felt relieved. It's not that there is no gain at all. At least there are still 5 guaranteed skill points. Shin Yuan thought this way and continued to let Smoker take the helm. Smoker. On the boat, Shun Yuan guided Dasky's sword practice. Rayleigh lay on the recliner and watched quietly. Smoker remains at the helm. Smoker couldn't help it anymore and was about to speak when he was interrupted by Shin Yuan. Wait a minute. Once you enter the Grand Route, I promise to personally guide you in practicing domineering. Smoker took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and continued to steer. In a moment, under the swordsmanship guidance of Shun Yuan and Dasky, the group arrived at the Whiskey Mountain Peak. The mountain that welcomes pirates. We are adventurers. How can they still welcome me? Rayleigh smiled and said, I am a pirate. Smoker. Stepping onto land, familiar rewards arrive. Arrive at Whiskey Peak. Get bonus skill points *5. 5 points of skills have been added to the color of knowledge. Now the level of color of knowledge has reached level 14, and it can even predict the future for a short time. What a crime. Shin Yuan and the others walked into the town step by step and couldn't help but click their tongues when looking at the devastated town in front of them. Hey, little pirate brother. Before the leader of the gang could finish speaking, he saw Rayleigh standing aside. It's Pluton Rayleigh. The expression on the little guy's face gradually became frightened, and finally became extremely frightening. Run, run. Rayleigh smiled slightly, and then a wave of Conqueror's domineering energy suddenly burst out, stunning the surrounding minions instantly. Shin Yuan stepped forward, and in front of him was a dark-skinned, strange-looking young man who was immediately alert. Before he could react, Shin Yuan punched him in the head. Bang! The huge force instantly shattered the head of the little guy standing in front of him. Smoker stood behind and gasped, looking at Shin Yuan in front of him in shock. Bang! The minion fell to the ground. Shin Yuan continued to look around. He couldn't help but be very disappointed when he didn't see the target he wanted to kill. Candle attack. Candle? Shin Yuan is excited. Is he the third brother of the Emperor's deputy more than 10 years later? Turning around, he saw a 3 above his head. A man wearing a striped shirt and khaki pants had a candle in his hand and shot it out towards Shen Yuan. Whoosh! Shen Yuan easily dodged the attack, quickly moved in front of him, and suddenly punched him. Bang! The candle man was instantly knocked away, smashing several tombstones behind the mountain. Defeat the plot character Galtino and raise the level to level 39. Death Mood. Golden Week kept waving his paintbrush below, trying to restrict Shen Yuan's actions. Shen Yuan glanced at Golden Week coldly and used his super powerful color perception attack to easily dodge Lacroix's attack. He ducked in front of Golden Week, drew his knife and chopped the drawing board into pieces, grabbed Golden Week's braid, and lifted it up. Let me go. Let me go. Shen Yuan became more and more annoyed as he watched. How disobedient. Crack. He shouted with a big mouth. Golden Week fainted instantly. Shen Yuan threw it aside casually, looked at the S************ E and bald man in front of him, licked his tongue, full of fighting spirit. Defeat the story character Miss Golden Week, and the level will be raised to level 40. As soon as you reach level 40, Conqueror's skills have already unlocked you. He added all 2 skills to Conqueror's Haki without hesitation. For a time, the vast aura condensed instantly, and Shen Yuan couldn't help but release it. The Black Conquerors instantly spread from its center to the surroundings. This scene amazed Rayleigh, who was watching the battle from a distance. Shen Yuan tentatively clenched his fist, and black and white lightning instantly wrapped around him, and an even more powerful aura came out. Conqueror's Entanglement? It seems that my qualifications are too high. This kind of ability can be easily learned, as long as there is an introduction. Shen Yuan was so itchy that he suddenly blasted towards the earth. His surroundings began to tremble like an earthquake. Smoker and Dasky behind him were unable to stand firmly, and they staggered and held on to the house beside them before they could stand firm. Bonus's scalp went numb when he saw this scene, and his fists caused a small earthquake. He didn't know how many moves he could take. As he said this, Mr. Wondes Bonus's hands transformed into 2 sharp long knives, and he rushed forward bravely. Bang! Shen Yuan knocked Bonus unconscious with a casual punch, and he was buried in the ground like a green onion. E-boxing. Memoirs of Summer. Feng Clay kicked him in the air. Shen Yuan dodged the attack like a prophet and stretched out his right arm to grab his collar. Taking advantage of the inertia, he took a step back, and his arms suddenly exerted force. Boom! Von Clay is also embedded in the land like Bonus. What? Do you want to plant it in the ground too? Mrs. Fingers were about to escape from the beginning, but under the influence of Conqueror's domineering force. My legs are weak. How to run? Tell me how to run? The 2 fingers quickly activated the fruit's ability, and spikes sprouted from the arms to block the chest. This time I learned how to do it with both hands. Looking at the green onions stuck in the ground, cold sweat broke out on my forehead. Shen Yuan moved. Seeing Shen Yuan's figure getting closer and closer, his stern face gradually appeared in front of his eyes with his fingers. She didn't react. My eyes captured the scene, but my body couldn't keep up with the action. The fist struck his arms instantly. Feeling the severe pain coming from his arms, he clenched his teeth with both fingers. Without waiting for his reaction, the former's big hand tried to grab the collar again, but this time, didn't catch it. You're wearing those damn tights. Shen Yuan simply held his neck and swung it suddenly. The ladder was thrown into the air by him, throwing out a beautiful arc, and finally landed suddenly next to Feng Clay. A family must be neat and tidy, and men and women should be equal. Defeat the plot characters Das Bonus, Von Clay, and Zala, and raise the level to level 43. Shen Yuan did not hesitate at all. All are added to Conqueror's Haki. At this time, Conqueror's Haki level has reached level 5. Shen Yuan looked at the 3 people planting green onions side by side, then looked around, and finally looked at Miss Christmas, who suddenly appeared, and couldn't help but be startled. You, Mouse, go and call your supervisor. Christmas was stunned, and the 2 looked at each other for more than 10 seconds. Christmas reacted, dug up the soil, and escaped underground. As soon as Christmas left, There was only a huge fat man left on the field, and beside him was a stupid dachshund. I was just patronizing a few of them, and I forgot that there was a loser like you. Mr. Forbeeb was dumbfounded. He didn't expect to see the hell scene in front of him just as he rushed over. Rayleigh stood aside calmly and drank. Smoker held the golden week tied up with 5 flowers in his hand, and this one was even more heavyweight. There were actually 3 colleagues standing beside him. He is either stupid or a little stupid. Who would fight in this situation? Those who fight are all fools. Desert sword. A slash made of sand struck from the ground. Shen Yuan smiled faintly and flashed sideways, aiming directly at the dumbfounded Bibu in front of him. BB didn't have time to swing the baseball bat. He only felt the world spinning for a while, and finally he was inserted heavily into the ground. Crocodile appeared in front of Shen Yuan with a gloomy face. The poisonous hook in his right hand slowly dripped a few drops of venom. At this moment, he stared at the intruder in front of him with a solemn expression. From time to time, he looked at the several green onions stuck in the ground beside him. Shinigami, Shen Yuan, who has a bounty of 530 million belly. Why do you want to come to our base of Baroque Studio? Shen Yuan, I came here for a visit, but as soon as I landed on the island, they came up to beat me. We didn't know what was going on, and we didn't dare to ask. When Golden Week woke up at this time, he gritted his teeth. There was a burst of curse in his heart. You're still pretending to be innocent. Shen Yuan didn't waste any time, pulled out the swallowing sky, and prepared to fight. Finally, here comes a guy who makes me even remotely interested. Shen Yuan opened his mouth and licked his lips. His eyes flashed fiercely. As the murderous intent leaked out, a surging conqueror's domineering energy burst out instantly. Call out. Crocodile was stunned for a moment, then reacted again. What appeared in his eyes was a slash carrying black and white thunder. Flying sand barrier. Crocodile quickly moved the sand to protect himself, but he still made some mistakes. He was knocked back a few steps by the aftermath of the slash. The former's offensive continued unabated, and he slashed and slashed again, this time more sharply than the last time, and the whistling slashes quickly flew towards Crocodile again. Crocodile will not be careless this time, and once again use the sand to create a barrier to protect himself. However, what he didn't expect was that a fist suddenly attacked with lightning speed. Bang! A violent sound resounded throughout the island. The blow was blocked by Lao Sha with his golden hook. His golden left hand was smashed to pieces by Shen Yuan. This force was still powerful, breaking his originally disabled left arm until it was broken again. You are still too weak? Shen Yuan disdainfully complained, raised his leg, and struck with another black slash. I think you ate the quick-cut fruit. Lao Sha hurriedly defended Shen Yuan's attack. At this time, it was already in disarray and could not even detect the opponent's position. At this moment, he was like a headless fly, activating his abilities and getting ready to go, while looking for Shen Yuan everywhere. Rayleigh smiled slightly, raised his head and took a sip of wine, quietly admiring the battle. Speaking of Smoker, watching Shen Yuan's battle also left me with deep feelings. In fact, Shen Yuan's battle at this time can be explained in just one word. Reckless. However, Dasky stared at Shen Yuan with admiration in her eyes. Shirgu in her hand couldn't help but tighten her grip and secretly made up her mind. Bang! A punch fell from the sky and hit Lao Sha hard on the head. Lao Sha's eyes instantly turned white. He lost consciousness in an instant. It was lifted up by Shen Yuan, and another green onion was inserted into his fingers. Defeat the plot character Sha Crocodile and raise the level to level 46. Calling it up. Shen Yuan wiped his palms and then noticed the mouse trying to escape into the ground. Are you going to insert it yourself, or do you want me to beat you half to death before inserting it? Christmas didn't dare to speak, so he walked forward quietly. The result is no surprise. After being punched by Shen Yuan, he lost consciousness and was inserted into Lao Sha's side. Knock off. Defeat the story characters Bebu and Dorothy, and the level is raised to level 48. The level was raised to level 48, and all 5 skill points obtained were added to Conquerors, bringing the level to level 10. Tisk, TSK. What a pile of rubbish, and it took me so much effort to punish you by leaving all your treasures to me for 10 years. Smoker, go over there and search for treasure. Smoker's face darkened. I'm Marine. Do you know what Crocodile's goal is? Shen Yuan held a wine glass in his hand and looked up at the whiskey peaks under the moonlit night. Tombstones set off the island's gloomy environment. Rayleigh came interested, looking at the people in the Baroque studio who were tied up. After thinking about it carefully, he said casually, Is it for the treasure? Why don't they go to Luftdru for the treasure? Rayleigh is shocked. How does this kid know about Ravdru? How do you know that the great secret treasure is in Ravdru? Rayleigh's expression changed again and again, but finally she shook her head helplessly. You know the legend of ancient weapon, right? It's the same as your title, Pluton. Rayleigh nodded. He naturally knew this statement. Ancient weapon Pluton is said to be an extremely advanced warship that can destroy an island with one cannonball. Shen Yuan nodded, looked around and saw nothing strange, and continued. In order to consolidate its dominance, the world government must firmly control this ancient weapon. Speaking of this, even Lao Sha became interested, and his originally cloudy eyes suddenly became bright. Hey kid, you know Pluton? Lao Sha raised his head slightly and looked at Shen Yuan with a kind of desire in his eyes. Shen Yuan said nothing and took a sip of the wine in his glass. But Pluton's drawings are not here. To be more precise, Pluton's design drawings are not in Alabasta, that fascinating place. Lao Sha trembled, but he was not excited. He was tied in place quietly and listened to Shen Yuan's narration. The ancient weapon is extremely important, so this blueprint is also extremely secretive. Rayleigh turned her head and said seriously to Shen Yuan, Could it be that you know where Pluton's design drawings are? Shen Yuan shook his head. If I had known, I would have grabbed the blueprints and then blasted Mary Joa into scum. In fact, let alone Pluton, Shen Yuan knows all about Poseidon. Having said that, everyone present was shocked. Whether it's a pirate or a marine, their jaws are almost hitting the ground at this time. Cough, cough. Rayleigh choked on her drink, wiped the corners of her mouth, and stared at Shen Yuan with burning eyes. You kid, you seem to be very hostile to the world government? Shen Yuan didn't take it seriously. His right hand was covered with a domineering and armed look, and he looked at the horizon with fierce eyes. Lao Sha, do you want to hang out with me? I will definitely clean up this world. Crocodile listened blankly. At this time, he no longer had the arrogance he had before. Only fanaticism remained. You guys are so crazy. Forget it. Lousy will just follow you and see what kind of world this is. Shen Yuan nodded. Then you should continue to run Baroque Studio. This will be my most powerful intelligence network in the world. He threw a phone bug casually, and Lao Sha, who was freed from the restraints, took it steadily. See you later. Shen Yuan turned around and led everyone to prepare to leave this place. Hey, don't forget our agreement. Lao Sha held a cigar in his mouth and smiled slightly. Certainly. After saying this, everyone disappeared from Lao Sha's sight. Smoker dragged 5 or 6 large boxes. He would do as much work as the production team's donkeys did. Lao Sha waved his hand, picked up the broken golden hook, and looked at the Baroque crowd. Our goal from now on is to collect underground intelligence and keep abreast of the trends of major forces. Do you understand? Everyone with bruised noses and swollen faces nodded dully. Shen Yuan and his party continued to sail, while Rayleigh stared at a chart the whole time. Rayleigh, where is the next destination? Rayleigh wiped the drink from the corner of her mouth, put down the chart and said, Small Garden, the territory of giants. Giant? Shen Yuan was not sleepy tonight, and he became interested when he looked at Smoker, whose eyes were dull in the distance. Smoker, let's start practicing tonight, and I will guide you in how to practice domineering. Really? Smoker stood up and clenched his fists. Of course, I, Shen Yuan, will never break my promise. Smoker nodded, and his silent heart once again had the motivation to move forward. Rayleigh returned to the house and lay on the bed. Shen Yuan's curse and Smoker's begging for mercy were heard outside. She smiled slightly and fell asleep. You're so stupid. How did you become Colonel Marine when you have trouble even walking on horseback? Smoker was hunched over and afraid to speak. The person in front of me is so terrifying. Just looking at it makes me extremely scared. Keep your legs steady. Keep your hands straight. This is to train your concentration. Smoker didn't say anything and just kept walking. Half an hour passed, and Shen Yuan was lying on the recliner, staring at Smoker all the time. An hour later, Smoker was sweating profusely and his legs were shaking slightly. Keep persevering. Break your limits. Surpass yourself. Smoker was erect, feeling a little nervous in his heart. An hour and a half later, Smoker couldn't hold on any longer. He rolled his eyes and fell straight to the ground. When he woke up again, Shen Yuan was still lying in front of him, but his eyes were full of disdain. What a waste. Smoker gritted his teeth and forced himself to stand up, maintaining the horse stance again. Stand still for one night, and you will find that you are no longer the good-for-nothing you were before. Shen Yuan turned around and entered the room, disappearing from Smoker's sight. The next day, the sun was shining brightly. Buru buru buru, buru buru buru. The phone rang. Shen Yuan touched the bedside table and picked up the phone. Hello? I'm Crocodile, Shen Yuan. I have a very interesting piece of information here. Shen Yuan is interested. Tell me, listen? Crocodile laughed, as if what happened last night had nothing to do with him. World government, the youngest genius in history, CP member Rabluchi, seems to be performing a mission in the Drum Kingdom of the Grand Line. Shen Yuan smiled and asked, Are there any details? They seem to be very interested in Tun fruit, and now Rabluchi seems to have just arrived. Shen Yuan smiled faintly. Rabluchi, he will die in the Drum Kingdom. Lao Sha laughed heartily and happily. Gwahaha. Okay, then I'll look forward to the good news. Shen Yuan hung up the phone and walked out of the room. The first thing he saw was Smoker, who was still walking. Go to bed and go to bed. Smoker felt as if he had been granted amnesty and instantly lost all strength after relaxing. He staggered into the house. Shen Yuan ate the breakfast handed over by Dasichi and had already started planning in his heart. Kill Rabluchi and his teammates in the Drum Kingdom, and the world government will train new people to go undercover in the capital of Seven Waters. In this way, Luffy's opponent's strength will be unstable. It may be the next genius, or it may be an ordinary CP member who can no longer be ordinary. Thinking of this, Shen Yuan made up his mind. He was going to kill this Rabluchi. Think carefully about his next plan. He will not recruit those cannon fodder minions. It will be useless no matter how many losers are knocked unconscious by conquerors. If you want to win over, you must win over the chess pieces that can be molded. No matter their identity, when the time comes, start your troops immediately. Arrive at the small garden and get skill points *5. Click on Conquerors, and the level suddenly reaches level 15. As soon as I stepped onto the land of the small garden, the reward arrived. Very nice. Shen Yuan and his party walked into the small garden. This island is ancient and mysterious. Legend has it that there are two giants on this island who have been fighting for nearly 100 years. Facing the intruders, these two giants were so calm and really calm. Shen Yuan smiled and pulled out Swallowing Heaven with a slash. Cut a large forest in half. Still not coming out yet? You are really doing a good job of being a turtle with your head down. Black light instantly climbed onto the blade of Swallowing Heaven, and a surge of energy spread out uncontrollably, stunning all the surrounding flowers, birds, fish, and insects. Haimong Funeral. The violent slashes passed through a large forest at the speed of light and shot towards the towering mountain peaks in the distance. Whoosh! Just when the attack was about to flatten the entire mountain, two huge figures suddenly appeared. A huge sword and a huge axe. The two giants worked together to deflect the slashing attack and launch it into the sky. Whoosh! The slash slowly disappeared into the clouds. Even so, the two giants panted heavily and stared unkindly at the few people who appeared in front of them. Just use your strongest moves. Use your strongest moves to attack me. Shen Yuan raised his sword with a terrifying momentum. Blue Ogre, Dongli, and Red Ogre, Braki slowly walked forward, looked at each other, and understood each other's meaning. The long sword and giant axe were raised high by the two of them, and they put on an attack posture. This time, even Rayleigh frowned. This is the giant's famous move, hegemony. This kind of slash is so powerful that even Garp himself doesn't dare to take it head-on. But now this kid actually wants to fight against it? I saw Shen Yuan also put on an attacking stance, holding the handle of the sky swallowing knife tightly with both hands. The surrounding space is even a little distorted at this moment. Streams of black and white lightning wrapped around its blade, and the power of the already dark swallowing sky surrounding the black and white lightning was even more terrifying. Let's get started. Attention, warrior. Dongli and Brocky's arms suddenly exerted force, and an extremely powerful force burst out. The unparalleled majestic slash was unleashed. Boom! Bagua's slashing attack was as powerful as breaking bamboo. It smashed the woods one after another and attacked Shen Yuan fiercely. Chong! Shen Yuan raised his knife to block. What? Rayleigh's pupils shrank. Kid, this is a hegemonic country. Rayleigh shouted loudly, wanting to remind Shen Yuan to dodge. Clang! Dong dong dong! Shen Yuan was hit by the chop and took dozens of steps back, with strands of blood slowly flowing from his mouth. Enough! Shen Yuan freed up a hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, and finally withdrew from Tun Tian, moving sideways to get out of the way of Bagua. I really don't dare to connect this thing hard. I don't know if it will be torn to pieces, but it will definitely hurt. Boom! The violent slash caused a wave of waves on the sea surface. I saw the water all over the sky, submerging the entire forest on the coast in an instant. Boom! Shen Yuan landed heavily on the ground. Looking at his physical attributes that had reached their peak, the corner of his mouth curled up. Good. Very energetic. Shen Yuan stepped forward quickly and came to the front of the two giants in a flash. Lanjiao. The black slash shot out towards Dongli. And here, Tunshin is already close to Brocky's chest. Brocky covered the small scar on his chest and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Dongli, be careful. This kid's attack is unusual. Brocky could feel it. The liver in his body was trembling wildly. Ah! Dongli withstood the oncoming attack of Lan Jiao with his long sword. But the small figure gradually appearing in the eyes is getting closer and closer. The two looked at each other. At this moment, the two bodies formed a strong contrast. The contrast in size is like that of a mammoth and a domestic cat. Bang! The strong fist hit Dongli hard on the face. Huge force burst out from his body, knocking Dongli backwards, causing his center of gravity to become unstable. Bang! Another slash cut perfectly on Dongli's chest. The small scar instantly gushed out blood, causing Dongli to feel dizzy and completely lose his will to fight. Boom! Dongli fainted and fell straight into the forest. Now, after fighting, Shen Yuan's physique finally reached full value. Shen Yuan opened the system's physical attribute bar expectantly and was surprised to find that there had been huge changes. Self-healing body, 100 out of 100. When the body is injured, it can automatically repair the wound, and it will change again when the physical strength is fully enhanced. Am I in the body of an immortal? Shen Yuan laughed at himself and was also a little excited. What a mighty warrior! Brocky leaned on the side of the mountain, his chest rising and falling, breathing heavily. Praise after award. I came to bother the two seniors this time because I actually came here for a request. Brocky stared at Shen Yuan, nodded, and motioned for him to continue speaking. I don't know, senior, but do you know a giant girl named Charlotte? Lin Lin? Brocky was stunned when he heard the name and began to think. Forget it, it's not important anymore. Senior, can you teach me your hegemony? In return, I will teach my seniors how to practice armed color hockey. Armed hockey? Is that the hardening method you just used? Brocky was a little excited and hurriedly waved to Shen Yuan. Orororo. Overlord is a sword technique that can be used by two people. Of course, if you are talented, you can also increase its power to a state where two people can use it. Shen Yuan just listened quietly and kept it in his heart. This kind of swordsmanship is to compress the power to the extreme on the weapon and finally add strength again at the moment of release. Shen Yuan listened to Brocky's eloquent speech without interrupting and just listened quietly. While listening, he drew his sword and made some gestures. Is that so? Black mist gathered on the blade. Seeing the mist getting darker and darker, it finally turned into the same color as the night sky. On the blade, the power gradually shrinks again. Buzz. Unable to maintain its charged state, Tunshin struck out boldly, throwing out an arc-shaped slash. At the moment when the blade was separated by the slash, Shun Yuan used his strength again. Just like hitting a baseball, the slash will explode like a baseball. A little more energy is injected into it to help the slashing attack again. Boom! The slash slashed everything in front of him into a trench of tens of meters. Wonderful! Braki was amazed again and again. This power even exceeded the hegemony he used. Senior, I already know a thing or two about hegemony, Shen Yuan said, sheathing the sword, stretching out his fist, and the black ink-colored domineering force instantly covered its surface. Black and white lightning also slowly climbed up, and the terrifying and fierce aura was fully activated, stunning the surrounding beasts one after another. This is the top-armed color Haki. The black and white lightning around it is my conqueror's Haki. Ba Tang. Braki covered his mouth in surprise. You know? Shen Yuan asked doubtfully. There was a big man here in the small garden. He had a mustache and held a long sword like you. He also showed me this ability at that time. The nose hair has grown into a mustache. Who else could it be besides Roger? Shen Yuan cursed in his heart. Defeat the plot characters Dongli and Braki, and the level will be raised to level 50. The two skills were clicked on Conquerors again, and the level was raised to level 17. Why is this reward delayed? Never mind. Then, Shen Yuan began to explain the two step-by-step, the principles and guidance of this ability, training and development and more. His consciousness suddenly fell into a trance, and a figure came from far away, approaching here. We have guests. Shen Yuan smiled and stood there with his arms folded to receive the guests. Rayleigh was confused, turned around slowly, and saw a figure rushing towards this side from far to near. Captain of the 1st Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, what do you do with Marco? The figure landed less than a foot away from Shen Yuan and suddenly stopped. I saw that his body was covered with cyan flames. He had a pineapple head, and on his chest was the logo of the Whitebeard Pirates. Tall, thin, dark and small. The green flame slowly faded away, revealing its original body. Hello, Maju. No, Marco, what are you doing here? Marco glanced at the figure beside him. Just at this glance, my eyeballs almost dropped to the ground. Rayleigh? Hey, hello, young junior. Rayleigh smiled and waved. Smoker and Dasky froze in place at a loss, making no move. Okay, Rayleigh, please don't interrupt. Shen Yuan, Dad wants to see you. Marco looked at Shen Yuan calmly. He seemed to be waiting for Shen Yuan's reaction. Will you meet me? Shen Yuan shook his head and said unhurriedly. We'll meet each other naturally when we meet. Don't worry about that old immortal Whitebeard. Shen Yuan smiled faintly and waved his hand to signal Marco to leave. When Marco heard this, his expression changed instantly, as if a huge boulder had been thrown into the sea. Stir up turbulent waves. Marco said in a bad tone. Shen Yuan, you have to catch me to save my face. Sometimes I lift my body too high and fall badly. Daisaichi, I'll teach you a dish later. It's delicious. Marco. Watching the people gradually walk away, Marco's face turned dark, and Braki carefully recalled Professor Shen Yuan's domineering cultivation method and began to practice slowly. Smoker has already returned to the ship to study and practice hard. After more than 10 days of hard work, I finally got something. At this time, his physique has been strengthened like never before. In front of him is a wooden stake made of straw. Punch out your fists and hit continuously to temper your own strength and lay the foundation for awakening your armed, domineering energy. Daisaichi, wait a moment, there's a fly. As soon as Shen Yuan stepped onto the deck, his whole right arm was raised and suddenly covered with armed, domineering force. When? It firmly blocked Marco's volley. Tisk, TSK, TSK. Is this the courage of the Whitebeard Pirates? Shen Yuan turned around. A quick punch, Bang! Marco was hit hard and flew to the coast. Xinyuan, a kid who just won a sea less than a month ago. Today, I want to show you the true strength of the Whitebeard pirates. After saying that, Marco was covered in cyan flames and flew high into the sky, kicking towards Xinyuan at extremely fast speeds. I originally thought of let you go, but really let you go? Xinyuan felt strange. I was thinking about how I could say something harsher. Resist Marco's attack at will. He held his chin with one hand and pondered how to organize a perfect, cruel sentence. After pondering for a long time, he couldn't think of anything cruel to say. But when this scene fell into Marco's eyes, it turned into contempt. Asshole. Don't underestimate me. Qingyan's output power increased instantly, but Xinyuan remained unmoved. Do you want to dance too? Xinyuan thought about it for a long time and still felt that this sentence was more domineering, so he took it as a mantra to become famous in the future. Repelling Marco's attack, he volleyed impressively. He grabbed his head directly with one hand. Turn around. Stretch your arms back. Raise your left foot slightly and throw it out. The former took advantage of the victory and pursued it, quietly covering up his domineering force. He picked up Marco, who was still in a dazed state, and threw him into the air. I'm a fucking bird. I'm a phoenix. I can fly. What do you mean? Flying Thunder God technique. Xinyuan used the movement speed of moonwalk and shout to instantly appear above Marco, and his huge fist hit Marco's abdomen again. Bang! Marco's body dropped rapidly, and he spread his green wings to stabilize his body, but Flying Thunder God technique. Xinyuan appeared under Marco again, seemingly alive and well. He instantly felt a strong wind coming from his waist. Bang! Flying Thunder God technique. Bang! After playing back and forth for more than 10 times, Xinyuan had enough and fell to the ground. Marco also fell heavily to the ground. Rayleigh couldn't hold back anymore and showed a weird smile. Cough, cough. Marco stood up staggeringly. One hand is covering his abdomen, the other is covering his lower back. There was still a trace of blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Xinyuan stared at the person in front of him coldly. He began to think about whether he should form a good relationship with the Whitebeard pirates. Admittedly, the Whitebeard pirates are undoubtedly the largest force now, with many sons and a man who stands at the top of the world. If you can win over this force, it will also be very beneficial to your layout before challenging the 5 elders. Marco, go back and tell Whitebeard that I will go find him. Marco stood up. He took a deep look at Xinyuan. It rose into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Defeat the plot character Marco and raise the level to level 53. Maximum level conquerors. Hee. Xinyuan rubbed his little hands excitedly. Added 3 skills to Conqueror's Haki. The max level conquerors exploded instantly. A terrifying aura spread around. Wow. The conqueror's wind blew across Rayleigh's face. His face changed again and again, but he still suppressed the questions in his heart. Everyone got on the boat and Smoker witnessed the whole battle. He could only describe it in one word. Play. Just playing. You don't think of Marco as a human being at all. After boarding the deck, Xinyuan breathed a sigh of relief. He touched his belly and waited for Dasky to bring up the Dongpa meat that he had told him about. Next destination, Drum Kingdom. Smoker quickly took the helm. Rayleigh hung the sail aside, and the ship started slowly, heading towards the Drum Kingdom. Warrior. Blue Ogre Dongli and Red Ogre Brocky stood on the coast, waving to Xinyuan. Goodbye. He also waved his hand and said goodbye. To be honest, Xinyuan really doesn't dislike these 2 people. He did not strike hard, nor did he treat the 2 of them as weak. For a duel, it lasted for more than 100 years. This perseverance deserves his respect. Brocky opened his mouth and shouted, When you circle the Grand Line, come back here and we can talk about old times again. Dongli also said goodbye. Warrior, thank you for the secret technique. Next time you come here, I will give you all my money to teach you my sword skills. Say it. The 2 giants watched the ship in the distance getting further and further away, and finally turned into a small black dot and disappeared. Xinyuan stood on the bow of the ship, still looking deeply at the small garden island in the distance. What? Are you interested in giants? Rayleigh said with great interest. I said, Old man, go and cool down wherever you need to. Rayleigh shrank her neck and lay down on Shen Yuan's recliner. Old man, throw out your navigational needle. Shen Yuan spoke calmly and blackmailed Rayleigh. Rayleigh didn't hesitate. He threw his navigation pointer to Shen Yuan. He took it. A delicate and small pointer is held in the hand. I gotta watch this time. I feel like I almost missed something. Rayleigh. I almost fell off the recliner. Dad, that's it. Marco sat on the deck with a gloomy face. At this moment, he was reporting to Whitebeard what happened yesterday. Glalalala. This kid is really interesting. Okay, then I'll wait. I'll be right here waiting for you. Whitebeard was not angry but happy, and said with admiration, Dad, this guy Shen Yuan's strength is indeed unfathomable. I can feel it when I fight with him. This guy doesn't treat me as a human being. Whitebeard shook Song Yunxier in his hand, and the corner of his mouth showed a hint of curvature. Goolalala. This kid is the grandson of the old man Garp after all. It can be regarded as inheriting the mantle of Garp. In this sea area, the title of Iron Fist is about to change hands. Marco nodded when he heard this. He shook his head again. No, Dad, that boy seems to be a great swordsman. Swordsman? The former laughed boldly, a look of indifference. I can tell that there have been a lot of reports about the deeds of the little kid Shen Yuan these days. Didn't you see something? Marco was stunned, but he didn't pay attention to this. This kid kills all evil people. Whitebeard sat down slowly, picked up the wine glass as big as a millstone, raised his head and took a sip. Dad, stop drinking. Your body can't hold it. I know. This moment, the Great Line, the kingdom of the magnetic drum. Arrive at the drum kingdom and obtain skill points *5. Without any hesitation, he focused all 5 skills on seeing, hearing, and color. On behalf of the world government, I am here to kill those with the ability to swallow the fruit. Shen Yuan imitated Lu Qi's tone. As everyone walked and talked with Rayleigh, their ridicule was palpable. Smoker looked sullen. The fist is slowly wrapped with a layer of armed, domineering force. He glanced at Dasky, who was standing next to Shen Yuan, with resentful eyes. This little girl Dasky actually mastered the armed color entanglement within 7 days of practicing domineering with Shen Yuan. My mind is broken. Smoker secretly made up his mind to master the knowledge and color hockey faster than Dusky. Outsiders, please don't move. Wearing a green cotton-padded jacket, with a square face and steam rising from his nostrils, he was arrogantly pointing his axe at everyone. Don't talk nonsense. Look at their ship. Just kill them and take the treasure. A guard next to Dalton said sinisterly, and there was a faint movement. Shut your mouth. How are we different from pirates if we do this? Dalton had a gloomy face and spoke again calmly. Outsiders, what are your intentions in coming to this country? Don't be impatient. We are just here to see a doctor. It doesn't matter, right? Dalton breathed a sigh of relief. Just looking at his face, he didn't look like a heinous person. Okay, register your identity information with me. Team Captain, do you see this reward order? Dalton accepted the reward order suspiciously, and after just one glance, his eyes almost dropped. Shinigami, Shen Yuan? The great pirate with a bounty of 530 million belly? Dalton trembled as he spoke. Even the hand holding the reward order is useless. Pirates? Dalton suppressed his fear and spoke again. I'm sorry, I just killed some damn people. I didn't expect that I was being rewarded. I'm so sorry. At this time, the crowd also recognized Rayleigh and shouted in horror. Pluton! Rayleigh! Rayleigh's glasses flashed in the sun, and he suddenly noticed his exposure. No, buddy. How did you recognize me because I wrapped it so tightly? Shen Yuan looked at Rayleigh with a gloomy face. It seems like your cloak has grown on you, don't you know? Rayleigh was stunned, and silently stuffed her cloak into her cotton pants. It's weird. Shen Yuan couldn't help complaining. Invaders, stop your steps. This matter must be informed to the king. No need. In the distance, A group of figures walked from far to near. The leader wore a black top hat, put his hands in his pockets, and looked at Dalton with cold eyes as he spoke lightly. "You." Just as Dalton was about to speak, a quick kick came towards him. Bang! The man wearing a black top hat instantly kicked Dalton and knocked him several meters away. "On behalf of the world government, I am here to search for traces of the Tun fruit. And you, Shinigami Shinyuan, who has a bounty of 530 million, will be killed by me today." Lu Qi spoke coldly, without any emotion. Shinyuan and Rayleigh looked at each other, and their expressions instantly became extremely strange. "Shinyuan, on behalf of justice, I will eliminate you evil-wanted criminals." Shinyuan couldn't hold back any longer and looked at Rayleigh holding back a smile. "How about this?" He grabbed a handful of snow from the ground and shaped it into snowballs. "You might not be able to catch my ball." The armor-covered hockey was suddenly thrown towards Lu Qi. "Call out." The snowball flew out and made a sonic explosion. "Don't play silly tricks." Lu Qi stretched out his palm to catch the snowball, but failed to catch it. "Didn't catch it?" Question mark. Lu Qi glanced at his palm and saw a big hole in the center of his palm. "Hiss ha!" Lu Qi gasped, covering his palms with a ferocious look on his face. "Hidden weapon?" Lu Qi shouted angrily. He looked up and at one glance, he panicked. Shinyuan, Rayleigh, and everyone were weighing petite snowballs in their hands, preparing to start a big battle. Everyone is in combat mode. Lu Qi roared loudly and immediately ignored the pain coming from his palm. He quickly rose up and instantly entered the half-animal transformation, kicked out a volley of slashes. "Call out." Shinyuan easily dodged the slashing attack and once again threw a snowball wrapped in armed colors. "What the hell? Is this a cannonball?" Lu Qi didn't dare to take a hard answer. Using the ability of paper drawing, I narrowly avoided the snowballs, but saw snowballs coming in succession. Six King's Spear. Lu Qi clasped his hands tightly and faced the snowballs fiercely, knocking down several snowballs one after another. "It's so boring. It hurts. It hurts." Lu Qi looked at the empty palm with black lines on his face, raised his head and rushed towards Shinyuan. At this moment, CP9 member Kaku wanted to kick out Lan and interfere with Shinyuan's actions. "Call out." Rayleigh blocked it easily, drew out his long sword and made a rapid slash. "Why is Rayleigh here too?" Kaku's pupils shrank sharply. He immediately wanted to retreat, and his chest was instantly torn apart after being slashed. Kaku lost consciousness and suddenly fell to the snow. Stormfoot. Shinyuan still dodged easily and quickly came to Lu Qi, pulled out the swallowing sky. A terrifying aura instantly filled the surroundings, and Lu Qi's pupils suddenly shrank. A slash hit Lu Qi in the chest, knocking him to the ground and falling heavily into the snow. Its fruit power faded instantly, and it fell to the ground without making a sound. Shinyuan turned his head and looked to his side. Black light shower. Tashi waved Shigure and easily chopped down Natsutori. Smoker's side was fighting 1 against 2, knocking the remaining 2 CP members Owl and Jabber to the ground, unable to fight back. "Wanna run?" Shinyuan moved in front of Bruno at high speed. As soon as his palm touched the door handle, he punched him and knocked him unconscious. Bang! Standing firmly on the snow, looking at the CP9 members lying around, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. "Smoker, tie them up and put them on the boat?" Smoker hesitated. He is Marine, technically a subordinate of the world government. "Execute the order." The majestic voice came out again, and Smoker immediately became busy. "Smoker, you are awesome. You are awesome." Pop! Shinyuan slapped him twice mercilessly. Lu Qi woke up slowly, as if waking up from a big dream, and looked at Shinyuan, who was staring at him in shock. There was a flash of panic in his eyes for a moment. It was as if I had seen an evil ghost from the 9 nether hells. "What do you want?" "We are from the world government." "World government's thugs?" "They are just a bunch of trash who do dirty things for the world government." Shinyuan's words were like sharp blades, sarcastic without mercy. Lu Qi gritted his teeth and tried desperately to break free from the rope that bound him, but it was all in vain. I'll ask you an answer. Stop talking nonsense, or I'll take your life. Lu Qi took a deep breath and nodded helplessly after weighing the pros and cons. The world government sent you to seize the Tunton fruit. Are there other tasks? Lu Qi pursed his lips tightly, as if he didn't want to mention this issue. Shen Yuan suddenly pulled out Dasky's Shigur and stabbed Lu Qi's waist like lightning. Lu Qi's eyes opened wide, and his eyeballs were filled with scary red bloodshot eyes. Dasky looked at Shen Yuan helplessly, cursing secretly in her heart. You guy, you used my knife during torture? How shameless. Scumbag. I ask again, what other tasks are there? Lu Qi still stuck to his beliefs and stubbornly remained silent. What a tough guy. Shen Yuan swung the knife again, and this time, the tip of the knife was aimed at Lu Qi's other waist. Lu Qi's eyes almost popped out of his sockets. Are you obsessive-compulsive? It has to be symmetrical. Lu Qi felt the pain on both sides of his waist that seemed to be torn apart. He gasped for breath, and the cold sweat on his forehead gushed out like a flood. This cunning knife followed its hollow palm like a lion majesty and penetrated into his arm. Wonderful. This swordsmanship, this is simply a miraculous swordsmanship. Dasky's eyes sparkled with surprise. This knife is so precise that it would be extremely difficult for someone without extraordinary skills to do it. Lu Qi could no longer bear the severe pain and let out a wailing sound like a slaughtered pig. Cold sweat broke out on the foreheads of the other CP members, but no one dared to speak out to stop them. Forget it. I won't ask you anymore. Just tell me. He pointed Shigur in front of Nudori. Cold sweat suddenly broke out on his forehead, and he was about to speak tremblingly. Just then, Lu Qi glared at Nuri with fierce eyes, and he didn't know whether to say it or not for a moment. Another knife stabbed Lu Qi's other arm, also from top to bottom. I said, Boy Shen Yuan, do you want to eat barbecue? Rayleigh couldn't help complaining. The more Dasky looked at it, the more distressed she became. Master, can you? No, your knife is very useful. Dasky's little face fell instantly and turned black. Ah! Another burst of hysterical screams spread throughout the cabin. I was panicking. I was really panicking. We also have a mission to investigate Iceberg and Tom in the capital of Seven Waters. The world government suspects that they have the blueprints for the ancient weapon Pluton. Natsutori told everything he knew like he was pouring beans, without any scruples. Now it's business to survive the devil in front of you. That's very good, but I know all these things. Seal his throat with a knife and kill Nuri in the cabin. The victim even opened his mouth before he died, as if he still wanted to talk about the details of the incident. Come on, tell me, do you have any other information? If you don't satisfy me, you will end up like that kid. Kaku sweated profusely on his forehead. The brain that originally only had 4 cores is now running like an 8-core built-in. I have some information about devil fruits here. I don't know. Shen Yuan's eyes sparkled. Alas, the young man is on the road. Kaku breathed a sigh of relief, and then revealed all the information he knew in front of the tip of the knife. The Logia burning fruit is on Longchain Island, and seems to be in the hands of Marines stationed there. There are also Paramecia fluttering fruit power users. Right here? Where? Shen Yuan's eyes burst into unprecedented light. The coveted devil fruit. Exist. Kaku's mind changed quickly, and he wanted to use this information to trade with Shen Yuan. What the hell are you doing? I'm giving you face. Shigur reached out and stabbed Kaku's ribs. Ah! Kaku howled in pain. He didn't dare to plot against Shen Yuan anymore, and told everything he knew. Golden Lion, the person with Piao Piao fruit ability, may appear in the East China Sea. Okay, I'm very satisfied with your answer. So where exactly is the Golden Lion in the East China Sea? Kakuka shell. He didn't answer, because he really didn't know about this. Chat, I know where the Golden Lion is. On the unnamed island in the East China Sea, it is said that the Golden Lion is reaccumulating its strength there, preparing to accumulate power to rule the world. Shen Yuan has a weird expression. Unnamed island? Can you tell me where exactly the unnamed island is? Do you know why Wuming Island is called Wuming Island? The authors of some books are still called anonymous. Are they really called anonymous? If you pass the test, you can live. Shin Yuan said calmly. Kakukaku, what about me? You? You can live half of it. Good guy. The king of hell clicks. Rayleigh complained again. Khalifa is on the way here. Is this information good or bad? Jabra looked vicious at this time. Well, you're right. This is indeed good information. Jabra was hacked to death instantly, and his expression before death still maintained a sinister and cunning smile. But you caused me psychological discomfort. A group of people were trembling with fear, and the whole cabin was silent for a while. Big brother, the higher-ups have noticed you. It seems that they want to recruit or eliminate you. It is said that they want to contact Marine to encircle you. Shin Yuan touched his chin and was very satisfied. What's your name? My name is Bruno. Very good. You can live, Kaku. You are dead. Why did I die? Because you are too dangerous, and you still want to threaten me in this situation. After saying that, before Kaku could speak, a black arm pierced Kaku's chest. Puff! Kaku vomited a mouthful of blood, and his head hung down weakly. Bruno, your fruit is very interesting. Do you want to follow me? Bruno smiled slightly, and his plan succeeded. Of course. Bruno has already thought about it. Step 1. The moment you untie the shackles, escape through the gate of opening. Step 2. Escape to another island. Who can find me? The ideal is very plump. The reality is very skinny. The terrifying armed color-covered Shigear, and Bruno's right arm was cut off with a single knife. There's just no future for you. Bruno covered his broken arm and was extremely horrified. Staring at Shun Yuan with both eyes, he shouted out without any scruples at this moment. Do you want to be an enemy of the world government? It doesn't matter. Another knife cut off Bruno's neck without resistance, and the reflection of the ceiling could even be seen from the neat cut. Lucci, you should go with him too. Another sharp slash of the knife cut off Lucci's head. It fell to the ground and rolled to Rayleigh's feet. Owl was the only one left on the field who was still panting. His whole body was trembling uncontrollably at this moment, and he didn't dare to look directly into Shan Yuan's eyes. Owl, you are the only one among these people who is considered a human being. You are considered a hostage. The owl nodded like a chicken pecking at rice, not daring to neglect Shin Yuan, the god of plague. At the same time, Khalifa stepped on Moonwalk and rushed over. As soon as he arrived at the Drum Kingdom, he saw a ship docked on the coast, which made Khalifa a little confused. Khalifa stopped on the deck and couldn't get through the phone along the way. He could only use the lifeguard instructions to come and find everyone to cooperate. He carefully and tentatively entered the cabin. At one glance, he saw a picture that he would never forget. This? Khalifa was stunned. The scene in front of her was as terrifying as hell. The murderous demon looked back at Khalifa. His eyes seemed to turn scarlet. You. Shin Yuan took a step forward. He quickly covered Khalifa's mouth and dragged her into the cabin, while Rayleigh thoughtfully closed the cabin door. Crack! A sharp slap in the face instantly woke Khalifa up, and she finally recovered from her daze. They? Shin Yuan stared at Khalifa in front of him, with her fishnet stockings, sexy red lips, shawl hair, and delicate face. Which man could not be moved by her? What a beauty! Shin Yuan clicked his tongue in surprise. At this moment, even Khalifa's mantra had not been uttered. At this moment, he did not dare to move at all, and just stood there staring at Shun Yuan. Tie him up first, then throw these corpses into the sea to feed the fish. Smoker, look at this beauty while we land on the island. Kill the plot characters Natsutori, Kaku, Jabra, Roblouch, and Bruno, and the level will be raised to level 78. What a great harvest! Shin Yuan sighed secretly, allocated the 25 skill points, and then opened the System Properties panel. Name: Shun Yuan. Age: 14 years old. Identity: Adventurer. Skills: Marine 6 Styles, LV1. Swordsmanship Grandmaster, full level. Physical Enhancement, full level. Agility Enhancement, LV1. Strength Enhancement, LV15. Speed Enhancement, LV1. Armed Color Domineering, full level. Wisdom and Knowledge Domineering, full level. Conquerors Domineering, full level. Immortal King Kong. 100/100. Significantly increases one's own physical strength. Recovers quickly from injuries. Can grow any part of the body at will. Will not die after being seriously injured. Agility. 60.5/100. Speed. 63.9/100. Power of Demigod. 100/100. Significantly improves the destructive power of one's own attacks. Shinigami. Can enhance one's own attacks during battle. Can enter the Shinigami state and damage the enemy's soul. The strength will change again after being strengthened to the full level. Level 78. Reached the upper limit after level 80. Shin Yuan nodded, which was equivalent to having a small-scale unlimited zombie seal. Feeling the power of the immortal King Kong's physique, Shen Yuan is fully confident to fight against the world government at this moment. Now there are 80 Kaidos in front of him. I can escape safely. I'm not sure whether I can fight or not. You can definitely run. Walking into the island, Dalton, who was originally hostile to him, was staring at the people in front of him with a solemn look on his face. Who are you looking for? On behalf of the world government, I am here to investigate the whereabouts of the Tun fruit. Please cooperate with me. Dalton was dumbfounded and stood there helplessly. Lead the way, Shin Yuan said righteously. This? Dalton thought for a while, and finally led everyone to the palace. With a level of 78, the physique of an immortal King Kong, and the full level of 3-color domineering energy, it can even damage the enemy's soul. At this time, Shin Yuan was extremely arrogant. Anyone who stands in my way will die. Just as Shen Yuan was thinking, he walked to the palace gate without knowing it. Sir, the person with the ability to swallow the fruit from the Drum Kingdom is inside, Dalton said tremblingly. New. Dalton turned around and walked away and breathed a sigh of relief, then carefully thought about what had just happened. Shinigami Shinyun, who has a bounty of 530 million berry, and Pluton Rayleigh, who has a bounty of 1 billion berry. These people represent the world government and are investigating the swallowing fruit? Dalton shook his head. No matter what they did to Valpo, it's none of your own business. To put it bluntly, I am a security guard. Are you still concerned about the international situation all day long? Thinking of this, Dalton felt relieved. Ever since he was beaten more than 10 meters away by Lu Qi, he understood. Don't forcefully integrate into a circle that you can't fit into. Besides, Shen Yuan and his party simply explained the situation to the guards and were put into the palace lightly by the guards, seemingly without any scruples. The country is not peaceful recently, one of the guards said worriedly. Another guard also nodded in agreement. 2 princes are vying for the throne, and now officials from the world government are coming to visit. There has been no peace in recent years. The former nodded yes. Just do your job well, and don't cause too many troubles. The fighting that just happened has already affected the villagers in the country. Some villagers who had witnessed the entire battle and conversation told their friends. The news spread like wildfire and spread like wildfire. Have you heard? World government officials started fighting among themselves and killed their colleagues in order to compete for the second prince's devil fruit. Have you heard? World government officials are going to the palace to kill the second prince, then the eldest prince, and finally the king to fight for the throne. Have you heard? The world government is launching a buster call on the Drum Kingdom. I wipe it? Really or fake? Entering the palace, the first thing you saw was the extremely ugly eldest prince kneeling beside the old king, reporting something. The old king looked at Shen Yuan's people who entered the palace and knew at the first sight that the people who came were evil. What do you do as an official of the world government? Shen Yuan curled his lips and opened his mouth. I am Robluchi, a member of CP. Please ask the old king to hand over the Tunton fruit users and all the devil fruits to make up for the shortage of gold in the sky. The old king's pupils shrank sharply. Heavenly gold? We all deliver it on time. Then I don't care. Dasky was dumbfounded. He was a great swordsman after all, so why was he acting like a child? That's too much. Shen Yuan raised his leg and charged forward violently. His whip was like a razor, hitting the eldest prince's body heavily. Bang! The eldest prince was knocked away, and fell on the pavilion pillar in the distance. Bang! A big hole opened in the pavilion pillar. Shun Yuan patted the dust on his clothes and stared at the old king with burning eyes. Pay it. We pay it. The old king sighed and finally compromised. Several guards were called in and then away. A moment, he came with another cart and then left quietly. Shen Yuan looked at the devil fruit in front of him and was overjoyed. There's one more. Shen Yuan spoke emotionlessly. Who's looking for me? You're an idiot. Shen Yuan turned around and took a look. What a handsome man with good facial features. This looks like the green flower downstairs in my house, and I don't want to scream any more when I see it. Valpo looked at these people. I was scared inside for no reason. Just as he was about to turn around and run away, he was grabbed by the owl. Chat. Sir, please deal with it. Shun Yuan said calmly. On behalf of the world's highest power, the world government, I will execute Valpo, the person with the ability to swallow the fruit, on the spot. Shen Yuan didn't talk nonsense and still raised his foot. This blow hit his chest hard. Vomit! Valpo spit out a large mouthful of blood and knelt on the ground dying. Watching this scene happen, the old king frowned. He naturally knew the virtues of his two princes, flying and domineering, in the land of fish and meat, taking by force. But there's nothing you can do about it. It's your own seed. Poor parents in the world. Just as the old king was sighing with emotion, Smoker pushed a cart of fruit and placed it beside Valpo with a dark look on his face. Seeing that the fruit was in place, Shun Yuan stopped talking nonsense. Raise your fist and hit hard. Valpo's head exploded. Judging from the condition of his death, he should be too dead to die. Kill the plot character Valpo. Raise the level to level 80, reach the peak, and a breakthrough mission will be released. Breakthrough mission. Raise the 4-dimensional attributes to full level. In other words, if you kill before then, there will no longer be a reward? Thinking of this, Shun Yuan felt a pain in his balls. Then I thought about it. I still have to visit a few islands, and I have a little bit of miscellaneous skills, and I can make all the 4 dimensions full by just making do with it. The future is bright. Shen Yuan, who won the skill points, added all of them to agility enhancement, slightly raising the agility attribute bar. Shen Yuan walked to Rayleigh and said seriously, "You stay here and take away the energy-transferring devil fruit at any time, and we will retreat first." After saying that, several people fled in an instant, leaving only Rayleigh in a mess in the palace. "Your Majesty, you are troublesome." Pluton. "Rayleigh, have you also worked for the world government?" The old king shook his head unwillingly and said. Rayleigh didn't speak, just sat down and drank quietly. The old king had no intention of staying any longer. He stood up, helped the prince up, and moved into the harem. And at this moment, Shen Yuan and others just walked slowly to the street. All the villagers closed their doors and windows after hearing the news and seemed to be very hostile to these outsiders. "Did you kill the second Prince Valpo?" The boy with black hair, wearing a white singlet and a cross scar on his forehead, timidly spoke. The hands holding the door seemed to be shaking slightly. Shen Yuan smiled, lowered his body, touched the little boy's head, and calmly advised, "Valpo deserves death for bullying others. You should not mourn for him." The boy clenched his fists angrily, his eyes tightly closed, and 2 lines of hot tears flowed from them. A moment of silence. Will I have a moment of silence for that bastard? Will I have a moment of silence for that bastard? The little boy's extremely suppressed heart seemed to be liberated at this moment, and he started sobbing uncontrollably. Shen Yuan was at a loss when he saw this scene and looked at Dasky blankly. "I'll do it, master." Dasky bent down slightly, reached out and held her fist, and patiently advised, "My child, what have you experienced? Do you want to tell your brothers and sisters?" When the boy heard this, he relaxed slightly from his excitement. "Brother, can you take me out to sea? I know you are not officials of the world government. You are either pirates or marines." Shen Yuan's face darkened. "I am an adventurer, different from evil pirates." The boy nodded silently, but still said firmly, "I want to follow you to sea." He smiled and nodded, patted the boy on the shoulder, and followed him into the house. "Child, what is your name?" Joan, your name is very nice. Shen Yuan praised. Where's your family? Dusky asked curiously. Having said this, the boy's expression darkened, and he told everyone what he had experienced. 5 years ago, my father moved me here with me, and I originally longed for such a life. My father is a doctor with some medical skills, and he relies on this to make a living. Although it is still difficult, we still enjoy it. But what happened next almost made me collapse. That day, my father and I rescued a seriously injured and dying pirate on the coast. The pirate was very generous and agreed that rescuing him would be of great benefit to us. But we tried our best and couldn't save the pirate. Before he died, he put a patterned fruit in my father's hand, saying it was a legendary secret treasure, and then died. Shen Yuan ate the dry food on the table and nodded fiercely. Xiong's face darkened. How come this man eats so fast? He ate all the food I needed for several days in one go. That bastard Valpo knew about this. Valpo sent a large number of guards to my house to demand the devil fruit, and finally charged my father with colluding with pirates. My father took all the blame, and I survived because of it. Not bad. It seems like something Valpo can do. Shen Yuan nodded. My father was executed, and I could only support myself by secretly seeing a doctor every day. I have always wanted to kill Valpo to avenge my father, but I am too weak. I am too weak. Shen Yuan touched Xiong's head again and said seriously, since your father is dead, it is his long-cherished wish to see you grow up happily. Xiong nodded. The great revenge was avenged, and he no longer struggled. Come on, be my crew member. I will take you to explore this world, help you become stronger, and let your name of Miracle Doctor ring throughout the world. Xiong was so excited by what Shen Yuan said that she agreed without thinking and hugged Shen Yuan's arms. This was the first time in recent years that he felt the arms of others. The solid and secure arms made him feel extra warm, and the gloom in his heart was swept away. After saying this, Shen Yuan turned to look at the owl. Go back to Merigio in a moment, and I will tell you what you want to say next after we get on the boat. Of course, you can tell the truth, but you will die faster. The voice was not loud, but it revealed a chilling, murderous intent. The owl didn't talk nonsense, nodded, and didn't even frown. Xiong looked at this scene and was secretly surprised. How comfortable is it to threaten world government officials? Pack up and prepare to leave. Shen Yuan opened the door and looked at the silent street. From time to time, a big bear with a cane appeared and saluted him. Shen Yuan also returned the salute without hesitation. Boy, do you want to try my special medicine? My special medicine can cure all diseases. Shen Yuan lowered his head and looked. Good guy, acquaintance. Cyriluk, Chopper's poor old father. Cyriluk? Cyriluk was stunned and nodded. Don't deceive me anymore. Here is 50,000 Baileys. Take it and use it first. Shen Yuan took out a bag of Baileys from his coat pocket and threw it into Cyriluk's hands without hesitation. My name is Shen Yuan. Please report my name if you need me. I believe this name will make everyone fearful in the future. Cyriluk looked at this scene blankly, bent down and bowed to Shen Yuan. Thank you. I will repay this kindness. Shen Yuan waved his hand, looked at Xiong and Dasky who had finished cleaning up, turned around and left Xiong's home. Cyriluk did not leave, and watched blankly as the figure of the person in front of him gradually disappeared. At this time, he completely gave up the bad habit of deception. Instead, rely on the money to continue studying your dreams. Back on the ship, the blood stains have been cleaned up by Smoker, and the entire ship can't tell that a torture has just occurred. Looking at Khalifa tied up in the corner, Shen Yuan smiled slightly. Khalifa, follow me. I will take you to explore the world and break your own shackles. Khalifa is still struggling. He hasn't taken the devil fruit yet, and he can already drink 2 ounces of Khalifa by relying on the rope. Khalifa, let's make an agreement. You only need to stay on my ship for a month. It's up to you to stay or go. Khalifa stopped struggling, and Shen Yuan loosened Khalifa's restraints, hugged Khalifa tightly, and turned a deaf ear. Khalifa, I know you have been trained as a weapon since you were a child, but here, you are an ordinary girl, an ordinary sexy girl who cannot be more ordinary. Khalifa blushed and said slightly, You, you are sexually harassing me. Let's get to know each other, Shun Yuan. From now on, just call me boss. From today on, you will be my personal secretary. And Dasky, at this time, my teeth are grinding to the point of sparks. The group is on the road again. Rayleigh stared at Shen Yuan holding Calipha in front of her, feeling resentful from time to time. That kind of demeanor seems to say, draw a circle and curse you. Shen Yuan was very satisfied with the devil fruit in front of him, so he couldn't help but take out the devil fruit illustrated book and started looking through page after page. Devil fruit illustrated book? Rayleigh asked in surprise. Smelly old man, are you shocked? Shen Yuan said with an air on his face. Can you? Let me show you. I'm too lazy to look at these garbage fruits. You can see if there is anything valuable. The rest of the garbage will be sold. Rayleigh took the devil fruit illustrated book and opened it with a hopeful look on her face. The more she looked at it, the brighter her eyes became. Smoker, why are you punching like a girl? Are you still the apprentice brought out by Lousy? This loud roar startled Rayleigh. He looked at the two of them, adjusted his glasses, lowered his head, and continued to look through the devil fruit illustrated book. Smoker kept hitting the scarecrow with a serious look on his face, quietly feeling the domineering energy of his own weapon. Stop the boat in front. Stop the boat for Lousy. After saying this, dozens of pirate ships gradually surrounded Shen Yuan and everyone. Oh! Shen Yuan was stunned. This is the first person he has ever encountered who actively seeks trouble. Who are you? We are the Mafia. You'd better obey, and don't let our hands be stained with blood. The leader is wearing a black hat and suit. A proper scumbag with a burning cigar in his mouth. A gangster organization in the underground world that doesn't know how to live or die. Shen Yuan thought secretly, why is there a mafia in the Grand Line? Rayleigh glanced at it, ignored it, and continued to look through the devil fruit illustrated book. Smoker also glanced at it, but ignored it and continued to practice boxing. Calipha glanced at it, ignored it, and stood behind Shen Yuan waiting for orders. Smoker, go give them some color. Shen Yuan didn't care and fell down on the couch. Smoker moved his neck and wrist a little, then smiled and lit a cigar. His eyes looking at the mafiosi are full of desire to fight. I'm going to stretch my muscles today too. Smoker leaped into the air and burst into smoke, rushing straight towards the leader in front of him. Fire! Several ships around him instantly made crackling gunshot sounds. Without exception, all the bullets penetrated Smoker's body and shot into the sea, making a squeaking sound. Smoker also moved at this moment, stretched out his right hand, and roared with passion. White fist. Plus. The fist turned into smoke was like a cannonball, hitting the leader's face hard. Bang! The leader was instantly blown away by the punch and fell into the sea, while the other gunmen were stunned on the spot. It's a Logia devil fruit user. It's a Logia devil fruit user. Attention everyone. No, the entire army retreats. Everyone ran away one after another. This scene was like a cat catching a mouse. Smoker White Hunter got up again. Fight with these pirates until dawn. White Snake. Plus Smoke Shock. Plus. Shen Yuan was looking at the navigation pointer at this moment. The pointer on it rotated and finally pointed to the route to Alabasta. Boy, there is an interesting devil fruit here with great potential. Rayleigh pushed up her glasses and was holding a transparent white devil fruit covered in patterns in her hand. Oh, tell me more. Rayleigh continued to push up her glasses, assuming an inscrutable look. This devil fruit is the Paramecia paper fruit, which can generate paper for attack. This fruit has great potential. The power released by this fruit after awakening is also very impressive. Each piece of paper is as sharp as a knife, can also produce explosions, and has some exploitable abilities. In short, it has huge potential. No, rubbish. Shen Yuan waved his hand and said. Rayleigh smiled and handed the Tunton fruit to Shen Yuan. This is the Tunton fruit you want. This fruit also has a high upper limit. It is somewhat similar to the ability to swallow, but it can only be transformed, not absorbed. No, this is not my purpose of getting the Tunton fruit. My purpose is to use this fruit to make money, make a lot of money. Rayleigh was stunned for a moment and remained silent. This fruit can eat garbage and turn it into useful things, such as wood, steel, and some other minerals. In short, it has yet to be developed. Shen Yuan smiled and handed the paper fruit to Khalifa and said with a smile, "Do you want to eat it?" Khalifa was a little moved. This fruit is undoubtedly very suitable for him. You really want to give it to me? It's okay if you don't want to eat this fruit. When the time comes, I will find a phantom beast devil fruit and eat it for you. I must go to underwater prison when I have time. Khalifa. Underwater prison? Rayleigh and Dusky's mouths were so open that their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Is the great prison under the sea a place you can go to if you want to? Dasky said angrily. It's okay, just treat it as a trip. Shen Yuan smiled, looked at Smoker's figure still fighting in the distance, and nodded secretly. Master, these people have lost their fighting power and have been tied to a ship by me. Shen Yuan nodded. He didn't know when he had already picked up a book and read it nonstop. Without even looking at the prisoners, he just said casually, "Stab them to death and throw them into the sea to feed the fish. Remember to do it cleanly." Smoker was stunned. Why do you seem to be the mafia? When the mafia boss heard these words, he immediately lost his composure. Are we the mafia, or are you the mafia? No, big brother. We know the whereabouts of the legendary and extremely vicious devil fruit. Oh. Shen Yuan put down the pornographic book and looked at the panicked mafia boss. It's the legendary evil devil fruit, the Logia fruit. It has the ability to rob other people with abilities, which makes people extremely fearful. Keep talking. Shen Yuan said calmly. That devil fruit is on an island under Kaido. Now the island is guarded by Kaido soldiers, and they are searching the island vigorously. This time we set out to sea to find the devil fruit. Kaido's island? Shen Yuan held his chin and began to think carefully. Undoubtedly, eating the dark fruit can indeed greatly improve one's own strength, but the gravity fruit can greatly enhance one's pretentious strength. The more Shen Yuan thought about it, the more excited he became, and finally he set his sights on the system. This wall-breaking system has not moved since level 80. There has been no news for a long time. How many days has it been? Shen Yuan was still deep in thought and continued to explore several islands to obtain skill points, maxing out his speed and agility. He estimated that the system would be able to give him something decent this time. Okay, let me go. The mafia boss was granted amnesty and began to break free from the ropes that tied him. After squirming for a long time, he found that he couldn't break free and finally turned to Smoker for help. Shen Yuan seemed to have thought of something, and the devil's whisper came from his mouth. Remove an arm before letting him go, so as not to hurt others again. After saying that, Shen Yuan turned around and entered the captain's room, no longer caring about this matter. Smoker smiled and pulled out the tin hands he had made in the past few months behind his back. Although there is no seafloor stone, it is not needed. Now the tin hands can cover the armed color hockey, which is even more powerful. Smoker looked at the mafia boss with a smile on his face. Something was wrong. It's like looking at a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Mafia boss. Give me a break. I'm a mafia. No, you can't. The group arrived at Alabasta. Shen Yuan, Rayleigh and others entered the kingdom. Smoker is still left on the ship by Shen Yuan. Smoker. Tired. Let's destroy it. Arrive at Alabasta Kingdom. Get skill points *5. All 5 skills are added to the speed enhancement. Shen Yuan instantly felt his whole body clear, and his weight seemed to have weakened. Walk into the desert. Shen Yuan glanced at him. Several guards in the distance rushed here in a hurry, seeming very anxious. Rayleigh also noticed this scene, and the glasses flashed in the sun. This kingdom seems to be more prosperous than when I came before. Rayleigh praised sincerely. Cobra is my good friend. Let's go see Cobra. Shen Yuan said with a look of reluctance. You old man, you want to see the king? You can go alone. I will look around. Then I'll go by myself. See you later. After Rayleigh finished speaking, he rushed towards the palace. Shen Yuan and others entered a tavern. As soon as I walked in, a few people were sitting in a corner. The waiter is serving wine. Shen Yuan spoke, and a waiter came over quickly and greeted everyone with a smile. "What would you like to drink?" "3 glasses of rum and 1 glass of orange juice." The waiter smiled and went down. Shen Yuan's eyes were not honest, and he seemed to be looking around for someone. "What are you looking at, master?" Dasky asked curiously. "Look that," Shen Yuan said with a look of horror. Dasky followed his gaze and looked over. As a result, I saw a woman with scantily clad clothes and rough waves who was drunk and acting like crazy. And every time I say a word, the waves surge. "Good guy, master." Dasky's back molars were almost broken, and an iron fist of love hit Shen Yuan on the head. "These people are comfortable, but the 5 elders are not." Holy Land, Marie Joya. The conference room was already noisy. Several old men were arguing with each other, and the topic started around Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan is an unstable factor, so it should be eliminated as soon as possible. So I have sent CP9 to inform Marine and sent a general to encircle and suppress. Another old man shook his head and argued, "This is an excellent chess piece. It can be used as our sword to consolidate our position. Why can't we use co-optation to get an excellent chess piece?" I also think this person is a pawn and should not be eliminated as soon as possible. Several old men argued noisily for a long time, but they couldn't come up with a solution. Report, a CP member has returned and seems to be reporting on important matters. The phone bug in the hand of the old man in black suddenly heard a sound. The old man in black, holding a cane in his hand, suddenly punched the ground. "What can't you say on the phone?" "It is a very urgent matter regarding the death of CP members." The old man in black looked at him for a moment, nodded, and motioned for him to enter the conference room. Dong, dong, dong. Owl knocked on the door and came in, looking nervously at the majestic 5 elders in front of him. "Say it," the old man in black said calmly. "Shinigami, Shen Yuan, with a bounty of 530 million belly. While we were logging into the Drum Kingdom to perform our mission, kill all my remaining teammates, and then force me to reveal the information about the world government." The owl looked indignant and continued. "I temporarily gained his trust by humiliating myself, and I quietly left when I found the right opportunity." The old man in black had a gloomy expression on his face as he listened, but the more he listened, the more something was wrong, and he looked at the owl with a scrutinizing expression. "You said you gained his trust and then sneaked out?" The owl nodded. "Why would he kill all your teammates and leave you alone to deliver the message?" Owl was stunned and suddenly thought of what Shen Yuan had said to him before. "Even if you tell the truth, you will die faster." These words were like a bolt from the blue, setting off a storm in his heart. "Answer me, why were you left alone?" A majestic aura suddenly erupted from the old man in black, scaring the meditating owl into a cold sweat. I. The owl didn't dare to speak, and clasping his hands together proved that he was very scared now. "Ah!" A huge force suddenly hit the owl's chest, causing it to scream in surprise. Invisible pressure pressed on its heart, and the owl's face gradually turned pale, until finally, there was no sound and he knelt heavily on the ground. It is obvious that he cannot die anymore. The old man in black had an angry look on his face, and the hand holding the cane was so angry that he was shaking slightly. "What a good hand. It's really worth it. I want to use General Marine to get rid of him. It's really troublesome." The old man in white robes with a samurai sword hanging on his waist folded his arms and looked coldly, watching the scene happening in front of him emotionlessly. "We are now at our wits' end. After Roger's death, there are too many force majeure factors." The old man in white robe grinned and continued. "As for Shen Yuan, I propose that a secret force be temporarily dispatched for close surveillance. That's all we can do for now." The old man in black lowered his head and pondered. "Information shows that Shen Yuanchu was born in Fengche village, and his parents are both villagers of Fengche village. His parents died in a shipwreck while out fishing, and he was washed away by the rapids to Kokoja village. Should we launch a buster call on Windmill village?" The old man in black laughed dumbly. "He's such a bitch. I'll take action and Marine will take the blame. Lousy will not bear the blame for this harm to the people." That old guy Garp is very difficult to deal with, and now Shin Yuan has inherited Garp's mantle. We don't know the specific strength. Now we just need to contain Shin Yuan and not create a huge trap. The old man in black nodded and acquiesced to this statement. At the end of the meeting, the old man in black walked out with a gloomy face. Before leaving, he glanced at the owl kneeling on the ground and shook his head. With such a clumsy plan, do you really think I'm a fool? How are the preparations for the 4 emperors going? The old man in white robe said calmly. Soon these pirates will know what they are. The old man in black smiled and walked out of the conference room. The first meeting against Shin Yuan ended here. At this time, Shin Yuan had no idea that he had been identified as an unstable factor. His decisions were proposed again and again and overturned again and again. The group did not stay too long in Alabasta. He had no interest in the royal palace, nobles, or visiting the king, so they all returned to their ships. The next stop is Sky Island. Let's go. Is there really an empty island? Smoker was shocked, with a look of disbelief on his face. Of course there is. There is a Logia devil fruit on the Sky Island. Shin Yuan raised his head and looked in the direction of the empty island, and then he remembered that there seemed to be a small island below the empty island. Where is the old man? He hasn't come yet? Forget it. We won't wait for him. Let's go. The ship set sail again. Rayleigh arrived belatedly, leaping high and stepping onto the deck, holding a bag of Baileys in his hand. How's it going? I'm awesome. Rayleigh smiled, stretched out her hand, and handed a bag of Baileys to Shin Yuan's side. How about it? How about just paying for my food for such a long time? Shin Yuan took it with a smile, threw it into Dasky's hands, and smiled. Old man, you understand the ways of the world. Arrive at Gaia Island and obtain skill points *5. After adding 5 points of skills to agility enhancement, Shin Yuan strode into the island. Brothers, go to the island. This voice instantly reached Shin Yuan's ears, and he couldn't help but turn around and saw an old acquaintance. Fortunately, Marco happened to come here to perform a mission and was summoning his little brother to come to the island. Brother Shin Yuan, is that you? Long time no see. Margao reached out his hand towards Shin Yuan enthusiastically. Shin Yuan was not pretentious and extended his hand, and the two shook hands. Last time we said goodbye. I admit that I was impulsive and I was wrong, brother. Marco scratched his head and said a little embarrassed. Shin Yuan smiled and said, I am also a little impulsive, and I am also wrong. The two walked into the island arm in arm, and everyone behind them couldn't help but have question marks on their heads. Everyone? Wasn't it that we were having a heated fight a few days ago? Do you know the specialty food of Gaia Island? It's delicious. While Marco enthusiastically introduced the food to Shin Yuan, he looked at the pirates on the surrounding islands. Lao Ma, what's your mission here? Marco was stunned, looked around, and turned to Shin Yuan and said quietly, I came here this time to find out information about the surrounding pirates. After all, there are only a few people in this sea area who dare to challenge our father. Shin Yuan also lowered his head and thought. Marco was right. There are only a few people who dare to challenge the Whitebeard pirates. Charlotte Linlin, Kaido, Golden Lion, even Doflamingo. But this was 1510, and some forces had not yet developed. Today's ants are not as frantic as old sows in giving birth. Lao Ma, I think you can focus on observing Kaido. Kaido? Marco also began to meditate, but was interrupted by a sharp shout from behind. Hey, this is my territory. Please pay the protection fee before going to the island. A man with black hair and a tattoo of the pirate group on his chest was looking at Shin Yuan and the others with his hands in his pockets and an arrogant look on his face. Hey, you guy, do you know who you were talking to? One of Marco's minions pointed a knife at Bellamy, his eyes full of evil. Kinetic acceleration. Bellamy turned his hand into a spring and pressed it to the ground and began to accumulate strength. At the same time, he watched the speaker stick out his tongue and lick it, revealing a big mouthful of white fang. He smiled ferociously and disappeared instantly. Spring Death Punch. Papa. Bellamy, who continued to dive, suddenly shot out like a cannonball, aiming directly at the little guy who just spoke. Bang! A violent collision sound erupted instantly, and smoke instantly filled the surroundings. When the smoke cleared, Bellamy let out a miserable scream. Ah! Get away! Get away! Shun Yuan held Bellamy's hand. His eyes were sinister, and a fierce light suddenly appeared. Evil pirate brat, I will do it myself? Shin Yuan shook his head. It seemed that those words were still more domineering. I have seen your future, and your future is that there is no future. Bellamy? Shun Yuan exerted a slight force on his palm, squeezing Bellamy's fist until it made a squeaking sound. I'll wipe it. Let it go. Let it go. It hurts. It hurts. I was wrong. I was wrong. The vice-captain of the hyena pirates, Sakis, brandished a machete and strode forward to save Bellamy. The scimitar roared towards Shin Yuan, but he did not pay attention to Cheong, who was ready to take action at any time. Bang! Cheong kicked Sakis to the ground with a side kick with his right leg, and then added a lawn kick. Lan Jiao. The blue-white slash came through the air and was about to hit Sarkis, but it was intercepted instantly by a cannonball. White fist. Smoker fired out his fist of smoke instantly and suddenly landed on the gunner Rebus. He was stunned instantly. His eyes turned white and he fell to the ground. Bang! Rebus flew upside down for more than 10 meters and fell into the crowd in the distance. Hitting someone, beating someone. The villagers fled in all directions noisily, very frightened. At this time, Shin Yuan looked at the two people taking action in front of him with satisfaction and sincerely praised them. He's really my right-hand man. Cheong blushed, thanks to the captain's teaching. Quack! Bellamy's palm was pinched off by Shen Yuan, and he used force again. His fist was like dough, completely limp. Release your palm and kick Bellamy away. After flying into the air, Bellamy suddenly felt bad. Really? A strong gust of wind came from my chin. A fist as big as a sandbag gradually appeared. A perfect shoryuken was executed. Huge power poured into Bellamy's chin. The former's face was sunken by the punch, and he has lost consciousness. The latter's movements did not stop at all, and his right leg was like a razor, kicking Bellamy away hard and embedding him at the foot of a mountain. Bang! Rubbles flew everywhere. Wood residue flew everywhere, and Bellamy was silent. Defeat the plot character Bellamy and obtain skill point *1. Why are there only a few skill points this time? Is this person too useless? Regardless of this, Shin Yuan turned around and smiled at Marco. Now we are clean, Lao Ma. We will not return until we are drunk today. Marco reacted, nodded and said, Okay. We won't go back until we're drunk. The minion who had just been rescued by Shen Yuan looked at Shen Yuan gratefully and followed Shin Yuan into a tavern. What would the guest want to order? The tavern owner was trembling with fear, with a look of helplessness on his face. Fine wine and good food. Today, I'll have a good drink with Majwa. Lao Ma. The tavern owner did not dare to neglect and quickly ordered the chef to prepare the dishes. Then he stepped forward with a flattering look on his face, holding 2 bottles of rum in his hand. Special gift. Please eat and drink well. The tavern owner smiled and put the rum on the table. Shin Yuan also nodded and did not refuse. Brother, what are you going to do next? The tavern was empty at this time. Everyone was frightened by the battle just now and ran away. No one wanted to get in trouble with this guy. I'm going to enter Sky Island from here. As soon as he said it, Marco was a little confused. Does Sky Island really exist? Isn't it just a legend? Shin Yuan shook his head. The Sky Island is real, just like the great secret treasure is also real. As soon as these words came out, the whole place was silent. Shin Yuan continued, To tell you the truth, there is a devil fruit on Sky Island that I am very interested in, so I am going to Sky Island to get it back. What is it? Marco continued to ask. Thunder fruit, but I am not going to eat it. I am going to give this fruit to my crew members to eat, so as to ensure their strength. Marco nodded. This is just like his own pirate group, treating the crew as his family. If possible, there is something I would like to cooperate with Newgate. Shin Yuan said mysteriously. Marco was stunned. It was the first time he heard someone call his father Newgate. But Marco didn't care. He didn't speak, and his eyes signaled Shin Yuan to continue speaking. I learned some valuable devil fruit information from world government spies. There is even Logia's devil fruit. Let's work together to steal the treasures of other pirate groups. How about a 50-50 reward? Marco lowered his head and fell into thought. Within a moment, it returned to normal. I will propose these things to Dad. Let's drink first. Let's drink first. Marco avoided the topic. This kind of thing was not something he could have the final say on. Drink, drink. Xin Yuan raised his wine glass and started a banquet with everyone.